Do it.
Radio killed the radio.
Thanks, we're live. So, hello, everyone. This is the sound check portion and the Dave Sings portion of the Gen X POV podcast. So, can we get a sound check? 1, 2, 3.
Can we get a sound check? It's that reminds me of that Real Men. Remember the Real Men of Genius? Real Men of Genius.
Well, okay, hold on. Let's take a step back, because do you remember how it originally started?
No.
It was Real American Heroes. Real American
that's right.
Heroes, which they started that about summer of 2000. Then, something happened in 2011 or 2001.
Right.
Fuck. Yeah, 2001. And they're like, maybe we should change the this, because up to that point,
yeah, it's
the Real American Heroes were like the World War II veterans at that point. So they're like, who could we offend? And then 9/11 happened. So like, fuck.
Real Men of Genius.
Oh, I love some of those too. Mr. Footlong hot dog inventor.
I don't remember the full on hot dog one. You know what's funny? The way that the screen is divided right now, like you have the two, there's like a plank of wood right here.
Oh, yep.
There's a plank of wood next to you, but I can't.
It looks great. It looks natural, right?
Never the two shall meet.
Yeah, but not quite.
We somehow eliminate almost 6 feet of fucking surface area.
Yeah. We're not presenting the most important display we have.
I know.
In the whole fucking studio with the pops. It's a real shame.
Oh, honestly. I want Spit Up Baby Yoda so bad now. Like,
are they making that too?
Oh, they better be, because oh my god, they got it. They sold frog and mouth Baby Yoda,
of course.
So, and then they have Baby Yoda obsessing over frog eggs.
Yep.
So now Baby Yoda Spit Up, fucking perfect.
Yeah, after eating too many fluorescent green cookies.
I think it had more to do with the fucking maneuvering, the flying maneuvers.
Fellow COVID club members. Did Big Swede get COVID?
Yes, he's got COVID right now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
When did he get his test?
Tuesday?
Fuck.
Or no, he felt sick on Tuesday. I think he got tested last Thursday.
Oh, shit. Well, get well, bro. Fuck.
Yeah, he says it sucks.
Yeah, it does.
we know.
Yeah. God damn. If you have trouble breathing, go to the ER immediately.
I know for him, it's been a lot of just that lethargy, that inability to get out of bed.
Yeah. It was fucking crazy.
So in the irony of that, I didn't know if he was going to make it public or not, but the irony of that is that Kathy and I were supposed to go to a party at his house on Saturday.
Yeah.
And most likely he would have been, he would have had it.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't have turned into COVID yet if he didn't start feeling bad till Tuesday.
Yeah.
So he's probably carrying it. And if Kathy and I went there on Saturday, and I mean, I don't know. The jury is still out on whether or not we can get it again.
Yeah, I've heard anywhere from 3 months to a year. Yeah. And it depends on who you listen to. So clearly they don't know shit yet.
Yeah, which is really remarkable. If you wonder, how the fuck are they going to make this vaccine work if they don't know? Like, they're saying the 95% success rate with the vaccine. I mean, is that
for
good?
How long?
Yeah. I don't know. You're going to be getting COVID vaccines every year like you do a flu shot. Fucking, yeah.
This is the world we live in.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, Dragon Buddy. We'll put a pin in that.
All right. So I think we're good on sound.
Yeah, I guess we sound good.
No clicking.
Sound check. Yeah. I was waiting for Bronco Fett to chime in.
Click.
Yeah.
Click. My pop filter smells.
What does it smell like?
I don't know.
Mine smells like nothing.
It should smell like bourbon from last week. I don't know what that is.
Is it like the smell of the candles that I light in here? Like a Yankee candle kind of thing?
Maybe. I don't know.
Jesus. All right. Lunar Girl says we sound good. Bronco Fett gave us a click.
Yeah. Lunar Girl, it's more the long-term effects. Like I'm getting an ultrasound on my heart in a couple weeks to find out, because I'm still having issues where I have to catch my breath, and it's been 3 months, 4 months almost.
Yeah. So, end of June, beginning of July, right?
Right. Well, for me, I think I was done with it the 22nd officially.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been 4 months.
Damn.
And I still get it. And I'm working my cardio and doing everything I can possibly do. It's a fucking suck salad, man.
Yeah. Ugh. All right. Well then.
That's good though. Get our COVID shit out of the way.
I know.
Now, that way we're not talking about it on the show.
Seems to come up every episode.
Oh, fuck me.
I tell you what, I think we had this conversation last week, but the whole recording and doing all the editing from this computer, like it's been great because I'm pushing the show out on Monday nights now. So
that's awesome.
As opposed to waiting a week and a half or more.
We just need to get we just need to make a social media push once it's out. So we would keep
that would require us to make social media.
You know, it's so easy for me to sit on the shitter and like post something in the cantina because I'm just reposting fucking memes that I've already found.
Yeah.
So to actually generate new content for like an Instagram post, something like that is, I don't know. I should be able to do it at the same time. You know, if I'm sitting here on a crapper, let's throw a meme together or throw something.
You would think,
but it's hard.
Yeah,
it's work. Do enough work.
I know, right? Well, are we good?
The escape pod's in the house.
I know. We got the whole usual listening crew. So sounds to me like we're ready to roll.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring up do the video. And the train just went by, so it should be good for
at
least 30 seconds.
Let's do it.
Ready, set, go.
From a Gen X point of view is brought to you today by
podbelly.com. Is that good?
It was good. I need to write a few chords.
You do. We need to have some music to go along with that.
Yeah.
I can at least have some sort of bass line for whatever notes I'm going to sing.
Right.
Singing the virtues of podbelly.com. Once again, 2 weeks in a row, I'm prepared with the list of Podbelly Network members.
Excellent.
To be able to read. And you know what the best part about that is? If you go to podbelly.com and you scroll through and you see the network members, of which we are one, from a Gen X point of view, you can find all these other podcasts that are in there that are fucking amazing. You can find shows like the Sofa King podcast, which is pretty much the flagship of what we are with Podbelly.
Yes.
Whatever. So allegedly, they have a lot of listeners and they're really funny and good. Whatever. Yeah. They have spinoffs like the Mind Frame podcast, which is also supposed to be good, which I haven't listened to yet.
Yeah, neither.
I haven't had time. You got Brewing the 99, which is
that's Brad and other Magic the Gathering podcasts.
Yes. And then you have all kinds of other stuff in there. Ectoplasm Show. We're not sure yet. Nerds on Topic. My Age podcast. Podcasts we listen to, all of these, you can go podbelly.com. You can find these podcasts. You can listen to them. You can link to their social media accounts. I think I might be making that up. I don't know.
You're probably right.
It sounds great. It would make sense, right? Yeah. Brent, make that happen.
Yeah.
Or if you're interested in something besides what we have in the Podbelly Network, which is a lot of amazing content, you can go to the directory and find podcasts like the ATSW Escape Pod, or the Used and Abused podcast. Our friends, the Galactic Refugee Caravan, and
which that reference is really showing its age now. So
God, it is. It's crazy, but it's still a very active part of our social media.
Oh, of course,
like for sure. If for nothing else, it's a good way to drop a bunch of memes into.
Indeed.
And Scott and Kim for the Used and Abused podcast. So go to podbelly.com. listen to the stuff. Tell them Jason and Dave sent you from the Gen X point of view, and you will do it.
And you will do it. So, what are we on from a Gen X point of view talking about this week?
Write this down. MARS, Mars, bitches. We're going to Mars. Red rocks.
Yay, yay. Yeah, so we're talking about Mars. We're not going to get into the greatest detail. We're going to talk about some specific things that we're very interested in. Talking about the human missions to Mars, basically, and our observations of Mars over the years, and kind of have fun with it from a Gen X point of view. But before then, I also want to say Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who is celebrating such a thing.
Happy Turkey Day.
And I recall Dave saying something to the effect of "fuck Thanksgiving" before we went live.
I'm more anti-holiday the older I get,
right?
Because it just seems like a lot of fussing, over a particular thing, and there's no such thing as going into a holiday like, oh, I'm going to relax this holiday season. Even if there's a fucking pandemic, there's always something. Like, we're not that I don't want to, but we're going out to State College to see Kate, and which is great. Get to see her. We're going to be very isolated with just, we're staying in a hotel, and then we're just, basically going to her apartment or her boyfriend's apartment, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That'll be our limited interaction, and probably a rest stop to take a piss. But so we're doing it social distancing and all that other good stuff. But it's just, there's so much fucking, there's like the Black Friday thing. We're putting up a Christmas tree, but no, that's some sort of faux pas, because we should be doing this later, after Thanksgiving, which I've been guilty of in the past. So,
well, we can talk about that when we get to our weeks.
It's fucking fucking
I have some
nonsense.
comments on that. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to anybody who celebrates it, and go fuck yourselves to anybody who thinks it's not politically correct anymore to celebrate Thanksgiving. Fuck you.
Whatever.
It's an American tradition. I don't give a shit about the history. It's what we do now.
American tradition is on point because we have a Australian that's in a squadron, right? They do this like exchange program. So we have Australians as our squadron's exchange.
Okay.
And so this Australian, like, when you're talking about Thanksgiving, no clue.
Right.
Like, aside from fucking volumes of information out there about like, oh, it's coming up and Black Friday, blah, blah, blah. Like, him, completely oblivious. Doesn't understand the whole turkey thing. Like, we had to explain what a gobbler was at Wawa. Like, that whole, like, it's so weird. It's like he's from another planet.
Right. Even though, Australians are very westernized.
Yeah, but they don't do Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you would see an Australian, you would think that they're just another person that knows all of this stuff, but no,
right.
They're not.
Nope.
Familiar with American history. Then.
So funny sending him to Wawa to get a gobbler.
That's fucking hilarious. That's good shit. All right, so why don't we hop right into our weeks? All right, and as always, I will start. And this thing is this what we're starting with first? If you're watching us on YouTube, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the audio folks, yesterday I got a tattoo. So I've been talking about this. I've been planning this since July, right when we recovered from COVID.
Right.
I started getting back into shape. I'm like, I've always wanted to get another fucking tattoo. I wanted to get a tribal sleeve, so I'm fucking doing it. I made my appointment, but because of COVID, appointments were being booked months and months out. So finally, my appointment got here yesterday, and I was in the chair for 3 hours. Yeah, hair over 3 hours. And I got the first part of my tribal. It's actually not done yet. It's going to bleed down into the forearm and eventually like move on to my chest as well. So, but this is the beginning. These are my first steps. I like it so far. Man, some parts of this hurt like a motherfucker. Holy shit, dude. Like, especially the top of my shoulder where the bone is. It's like she was just basically taking a needle and just grinding on my bone. Sorry.
Well, looking at yours doesn't look nearly as painful as Nick's. Like, Big Swede, who's in the chat right now, he's got really, really good work where like super detailed work with like Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
with Revan and Darth Maul and Boba Fett.
Didn't he just get Palpatine too?
Yeah, he's got think the latest was, well, maybe it was the latest Palpatine. I don't know.
Yeah, with the lightning and shit. Didn't he get
He's got that, and he's got the Anakin with the half the face broke off. The fucking detail work that Brett at the Tatooine body art is phenomenal, and I think who did your tattoo is a product of that.
She had started at that shop, or she used to work at that shop when I made the appointment, and then she moved, which fortunately was actually closer to my house, damn near halfway between my house and yours in Glendora.
It's a lot closer to my house than it is to
I saw your high school when I drove by or as I was driving over, so I'm like, I'm right I was tempted to text you and be like, hey dude, I'm right down the road from you if you want to swing by, but she kept her fucking thing locked. I guess it's probably not the nicest area where it is. It's
right across the street from there's like the sports outlets on the end, and I don't know, it's a reasonable neighborhood.
Either way, I got my ink done. Parts of it hurt like hell. My next appointment is December 20th to get more done. I want to get the forearm and then the wrap around my biceps. So
nice.
I'm excited though. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, I got to get mine scheduled. We talked about that briefly, but
yeah, and you should, because again, months out. So,
yeah.
So do it now, and then you still have time to build up for it. So while I was in her chair for a few hours, she asked me, she's like, "What kind of shows do you watch right now?" I'm like, I don't really watch TV, which is the truth because I don't. Right. The last show that I watched on a regular basis, not counting Mandalorian, was Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, I watched The Mandalorian, but I'm all caught up. So she's like, well, can I introduce you to a show? I'm like, sure. So she put on this show that's been out for a couple years now. It's called What We Do in the Shadows. It's on Hulu. Okay. So it's a documentary style show, much like The Office, Parks and Rec, where it's like a documentary crew basically following people around, but they're following around modern day vampires. And it's created by one of the guys that did Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, no shit.
Fucking hilarious. Oh my God. We watched like three or four episodes, and oh my God, I could not stop laughing. And like, this is while she's like doing my tattoo, and I'm like, I'm laughing, and I, make a lot of body movements when I laugh. I'm like, I'm really sorry if I'm messing you up. She's like, no, you're fine. So
it's just, whatever. It's your body. Fuck
yeah.
We'll just make it more black right here.
Yep. So moving on from that, was it last week that we talked about one of the recent Mandalorian episodes that had Bo-Katan in it, played by Katie Sackhoff?
Yes.
For some reason, I was looking up clips on YouTube from that episode, and I Googled Katie Sackhoff, Mandalorian, and all that. And apparently she's got her own YouTube channel. I know, especially since the COVID shit started, a lot of celebrities and a lot of actors and actresses have just been creating their own YouTube channels because, like, what the fuck else are they going to do?
Yeah, I remember. I thought we talked about another person on the show. We talked about.
Oh, it was that really fucking hot chick with the crazy eyes, and the huge rack. God damn it! What is her name?
I don't know.
I'll have to look it.
Yeah, I should Google crazy eyes, huge rack, and see what that comes up with. Can't possibly link to anything in YouPorn. Couldn't possibly.
Oh God. All right. Well, anyway, so Katie Sackhoff also has her own YouTube channel, which she's actually had for over 10 years.
Oh shit.
But she did a lot of videos for the first year or two, and then it cut off for like a good 6 years. And then only recently, again, with the pandemic, did she come back and start making new videos. And they're actually really fun. I watched a lot of her videos, and she seems like a really fucking cool person. So if you're ever interested in stuff like that, check out Katie Sackhoff's YouTube channel. She's got some really cool shit on there. She did her video recently where she was in a Halloween movie, Halloween Resurrection from like 2002 or something like that.
Okay.
It was like her first acting role, and she reacted to it in a new YouTube video.
She reacted to her own movie.
Yeah, and she's just like cringing, watching her own acting and all that stuff.
God.
But then she started telling a lot of interesting backstory, some behind the scenes shit, like stuff that goes on in Hollywood, like them using a body double for her in one scene without her permission.
Really?
She gets into some really deep shit. So
interesting.
Yeah. Alexandra Daddario is the actress with
there you go.
You with the cool eyes and the huge rack.
You just needed to go cool eyes or crazy eyes?
Cool eyes, not crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she doesn't look crazy. She's just got some like really interesting looking eyes.
Fair enough. Write that down.
So once the dust is settled this weekend, it's projections keep going the way they are, I'm going to be the number 1 team in our fantasy football league.
Amazing.
It is amazing. It's strictly off the back of Aaron Rodgers, his fucking number 1 receiver, and Cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those 3 guys, the NFC North fucking is bringing it home for Legacy of Bane.
Yeah, that's me with all my KC players because I have Travis Kelce, I have Hill, I have somebody. Oh, I have Le'Veon Bell too, but he hasn't done a fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like his days are over.
Dude, my first round draft pick has been that shitbag.
Yeah.
And I can't let him go yet. I just can't do it because like fuck, that was like I expended so much fantasy capital on this asshole.
I mean, he's got a very good fantasy history, but again, everybody's time comes
this fucking year. Anyway.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the dust settling on this weekend, and maybe I'll be number 1 after the weekend. If you had just like done your job and fucking beaten Tony, then I'd definitely be number 1. But now I have to rely on points.
Yeah. Fuck.
And that's all I got to say about that. Talking about Thanksgiving, did I talk about last week what we're doing for Thanksgiving?
Mm-mm.
So the last couple of years, we've actually been foregoing the traditional family gatherings because I don't like family or gatherings or traditional Thanksgiving food.
Right.
So
see, hence what I had said earlier.
But I do like to celebrate on that day. And what we've been doing is we've just been going out to eat the last couple of years. Last year, we went to this place called the Hibachi Grill, like a Chinese buffet. And the place is fucking awesome. And they had one little place where they had turkey and a couple of Thanksgiving foods, but then it was the rest of their menu. And it was great. We all loved it. So this year we're going to Radizio's right down the road here.
Nice.
Because they're doing their own Thanksgiving.
They actually going to be open for it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. We actually have indoor dining reservations for Thanksgiving Day.
Nice.
And, it should be like their whole typical death by meat menu with some Thanksgiving stuff mixed in.
Oh man, that place is really good for a death by meat place.
It is,
and it's reasonably priced as opposed to like Fogo de Chao or a place like that where it
still ain't cheap by any stretch, but it's cheaper.
It's definitely cheaper.
Yeah,
and I refuse. This calls to question the whole. This is a Brazilian steakhouse or whatever. Like having been to these places in Brazil, and I'm sure Bronco Fett can attest to this.
This is the point where my wife rolls her eyes every time I say something like that.
But it's the truth. Like actually having it there, like the meat's a little bit better.
Yeah,
and it's different. It's a different environment. So, but calling it death by meat place is adequate. Yes. I don't have to make the Brazilian reference and hopefully avoid the eye rolling that invariably comes with that.
Oh yeah, no, I've many a times we've in conversations. She's like, "Oh, do you want to try this new Greek place that just opened up?" I'm like, "I've had Greek food in Greece, so I mean, I don't know how good it can be." Or I've had Thai food in Thailand,
right?
She hates every time
I know it's a shame that our wives have to go through this, but it's what they signed up for.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice we're willing to make. So the last thing I have is I know I've talked a lot about my my piano and my guitar playing, and I've actually been slacking a lot in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, just because I've had so much other shit going on, and I've kind of gotten out of my normal routine because that's the thing. I'm a creature of habit, and I like to get into a routine where I do things at a specific time every day.
Yeah.
And because my work schedule has been kind of in flux, and with working out and then just all other kinds of shit, I kind of got out of my routine. So I need to figure out a way to get back into it because I played a little bit over the weekend, but I haven't been doing both every single day like I was. So I need to fucking get on it. And I was going to ask you, I've been meaning to ask you this for a month, how Kathy's doing with the piano playing.
She knows a lot of Christmas music. So this is nice. Like this is the perfect time where she sits down and gets into her, playing her Christmas music. So yeah, she's been playing, and it's nice. It's one of those things with having a piano in the house and being able to like listen to Christmas music like on the piano, without the horrible singing and without the commercialization and everything else. It's just a nice sound to have, and
and look at that,
a holiday.
And that's my app with a pop-up. It's time to do your piano practice for the day.
Well, at least it's reminding you.
Yeah, it has been, and unfortunately,
and you've been ignoring it.
Yeah, but that's it for my week. What about you?
Well, what did I put in here? So, I think I alluded to it last week. Or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. But so the new Call of Duty Black Ops came out, the circa 1980s version of what they're doing.
I think you briefly mentioned it. Might have been in the after show,
Yeah.
honestly.
So Cold War came out, and Black Ops, the only reason that I really enjoy Black Ops is for zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am like, yeah, I know we talked about it at least a little bit because we talked about how John and I would be in the office playing zombies.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, so zombies in BO4 was like really, it was not fun. It wasn't fun to play.
Mm.
So this iteration of zombies has actually been really, really fun. And so instead of just playing to play, I've actually decided that I'm going to try and go for like a plateau of reaching level 100 or something like that.
Okay, make a goal basically.
Yeah, because usually I would just play just to play, but I got to watching some YouTube stuff. Sitting there trying to work and watching these guys who the game was out for a week and they're already fucking hitting level 256 and breaking records and doing these speed runs, shit like that, which is so annoying because they're all doing it on PC. Right. I play zombies for console. I'm like first person shooters. I don't want to sit in front of a computer anymore than I have to. I think it's been a biggest problem with the teleworking is I'm spending all this time in front of the computer. If I want to play Squadrons or something like this, that's more time I got to fucking spend in front of the computer.
Right.
So I'd rather move over to the console. And if I'm going to entertain myself, like, cause I need that like stimulation where I'm not thinking about all the other things that I should be thinking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but like the chat is very distracting now. They're talking about Christmas music, and if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, you're really missing out because now they're all fucking with each other, talking about Christmas music. So, oh my God, we should talk about A Christmas Story this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, that's it. That's what we got to do for our Christmas episode this year. Gen X point of view, A Christmas Story.
Write that down. So anyway, playing zombies, and I set a goal. I'm watching these guys do this shit, and I got further when I was just playing than now I'm trying to like, I need to go do this and unlock that, and so I can get set up to be able to make that long run. So it's a little bit frustrating right now. So I'm playing today because the doctors told me I need to kind of limit my extended hiking, like doing like 5-6 miles of like hiking isn't really good for this issue I'm having with my foot. So you need to find another way to exercise. So I took my bike and I have a stationary bike kind of set up where I can put my bike onto it.
Sure.
So I moved that into the house.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, so I moved it into the house. Last year, I had it in my Florida room, and I would go out there and it'd be like fucking 30 degrees outside. And I'm out there trying to ride the bike, and it's just as cold as if I was fucking riding it. And the only thing I didn't have was the goddamn wind. So, yeah, so I moved it all the way inside the house. So it's like if I'm sitting at my desk, it's kind of behind me by the window, like if you're looking in the office. And I'm like, well, I need to do at least a half hour of cardio. And maybe I'll play some zombies while I'm sitting here. So I legitimately was on the bike, like riding it, and this is the beauty of having a fucking 65-inch television in there on a fucking arm that I could turn and tilt the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm looking at it and I'm riding, and what I noticed is that like when I'm running, I pedal faster. It's so awesome. Fucked up. And then I realize I'm doing it. I'm like, oh fuck, and it like I almost get killed every time. But it's like I'd be into it.
Yeah, you get the adrenaline pumping. Yeah,
I'm riding along. All of a sudden, I start pedaling faster like a fucking idiot. Like it's actually going to help me. But yeah, so I'm combining two things. I'm doing some mindless activity, killing zombies, which is just gratifying.
Yeah,
it just is. And I'm also getting some cardio out of it. So it's a win-win. What else is going on? Oh, the Christmas tree. We alluded to it. I traditionally have been one of those people that is like, I don't want to see Christmas until Thanksgiving. And it was always it was a big thing in the house with me, with the kids and everything else. Is like, no, I'm not putting up any lights, not doing anything till Christmas. But we always had a real tree. So part of it was going out, finding said tree, getting this dead tree, putting said dead tree into house, hoping it wicks up some water for a fucking month. So you basically have this giant piece of tinder in your house. And then I realized I'm doing it. I'm like, oh fuck, and it, like I, I'm almost get killed every time. But it's like I'm getting into it. And I'm just, it's so fucked up. And then I realized I'm doing it. I'm like, oh fuck, and it, like I basically have this giant piece of tinder in your house. this year we went and we went to Home Depot, bought a fake tree, right?
Yep.
And it looks great. I mean, honestly,
I like fake trees.
yeah,
I gotta say,
we could do a whole episode on why I don't. I have a thing against fucking fake trees. It has to do with working in a Christmas store, but it was nice. It's fucking pre-lit. It's got LEDs built into it. So if I want it to be color, I can push a button and it's color. If I want it to be white, I can push a button and it's white. So it's like, oh, this is fucking great. And there's zero maintenance to it whatsoever. Zero maintenance. So we got the tree up this weekend. So it's a little bit early. I mean, it's not terribly early. And then, like I said, we're kind of going away to State College for
so
itself.
You bringing that up, you're not the first person. Friends that I have on Facebook that are all just like, fuck it, I'm putting up my Christmas decorations earlier this year. Because are you familiar with that song, We Need a Little Christmas? That's the thing that I've been thinking about all year. Yeah, because I mean, with 2020 being what it is, everybody's just like, fuck it, we need some Christmas right now. Let's just, dude, who cares if it's early?
No, 100%, I get it. And aside from Christmas sneaking into the stores early, like standing there weeks before Halloween and Home Depot's entire fucking Christmas section's up, that was fucking obnoxious.
Yeah.
But I get it. Especially people are in the stores and people are buying shit and everything else. And if you want to be able to do some stuff, go outside, do your outside decorations so that people can get in the car and just drive around and see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this year more than any, I would agree. Which is, again, I'm softening to it because a fake tree is a lot easier. I'm not having to fucking go and cut and trim and fucking, make sure it gets
rigging up the lights
and keeping the fucking dog from drinking the water.
Right. That's a big thing.
Which was all last year. The only thing I will miss is in the springtime, I would take that tree. So once we took it out of the house, I'd put it in the backyard and let it dry out even more.
Yeah.
And then I'd fucking blow that bitch in the fire pit.
One last
thing
they're talking about in the chat is the Muppet Family Christmas, which is awesome, by the way. And I think we've mentioned that in the past, and they want us to review that too. Might have to put that off for another time. Probably only want to do one Christmas movie a year, maybe, type of thing. But we'll put that we'll put it on the docket because I've seen that probably 100 times, and it's amazing, and it's a family tradition for us here in the Roskam household.
Yeah, Orange Jacket guys bringing up the Swedish chef attempts to cook Big Bird.
Yep. Smurgen bird. So that's not it for your week.
Oh no! So last week I told you we went and I bought a bunch of records and was so super excited. Like the next day, when we're getting ready to set up the Christmas tree, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to put on this Beach Boys Christmas album and put the album on, and it's playing, and everything's fine." And it stopped. I went down, and it never did the auto thing. Like usually when it hits the end of the record, it would kind of auto return.
Yep.
That's what it's supposed to do. It didn't. So it fucking screwed the needle all up. So now I have to get a new cartridge, which is really fucking annoying. I played half of one album out of that before it fucking broke. So now I'm just super, super annoyed. Therein lies the thing. Like you kind of take for granted that you can start playing music or, tell Alexa to start playing something and you don't have to worry about, like, if I'm playing a record, there's the potential that, hey, when this thing ends, you don't want to fucking get into the end of it and getting all jacked up. So
a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts, which is part of the allure. And it's one more thing for me to fix. But yeah, it's not after you spend a bunch of money on records for it to immediately break.
It's a little disheartening.
It's a little discouraging.
Yeah.
Not going to lie.
All right. So is that it for your week?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we need to take a break or anything before?
I'm good, man. Let's all right. Fucking do this.
Same. Shit. All right. So we're talking about Mars, bitches.
M-A-R-S. Mars, bitches.
So I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, I wanted to start off with some facts,
right? First,
because let's just lay it out there.
Well, sure. Before we even get into that, I want to know when did you first, like, what was your first exposure to Mars? Let's say
So
when did it first become a thing to you? Because we've talked about it before between the two of us. Like we're super into astronomy.
Yep.
Like I have a whole laundry list of shit. Like as a Boy Scout, astronomy merit badges, and fucking just being that's part of my nerddom.
Right.
Is with astronomy.
So
what about you?
So okay. So my love for astronomy and everything has been really fairly recent.
Okay.
Right. So this whole looking into the sky and everything and being really interested in the position of the planets, this is all within the past few years.
Okay.
Before that, there was curiosity there, but it was more from the interest of almost like a science fiction thing. And when we start talking about the rovers, you'll really kind of understand where I'm coming from here.
Okay.
But my knowledge of Mars before that was like shit from the movies. I think back to like Total Recall. The colonizing of Mars. I read a book series in the late 90s. It was like the Red Mars, Blue Mars, Green Mars trilogy.
Okay.
Like it was like 3 science fiction books about, humans colonizing Mars. Not a whole lot really until the rovers in, what was it, 2000? I had it in my notes.
Which rovers?
The two. I put it in the notes. I swear to God I did.
That not the Curiosity rovers, the ones before that?
Yeah, the 2 before that from like 02, 03. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Spirit and Opportunity in 03 and 04.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you want to get into this now because I wrote the failure of the California public education system.
Yeah, I want to hear about that before, because we're going to start getting into this litany of other stuff, and I kind of want to get impact statements out early.
Okay, so until about 3 days ago. So first of all, when Spirit and Opportunity landed on Mars, it was kind of a big deal in the news, right?
Yeah.
I remember watching these CG representations of how these fucking landers were getting on there, where they, once they like got into the atmosphere, they fucking released it, and there was like this big bubble, right? Or like this like series of bubbles wrapped around the fucking rovers, and it like bounced for miles until it finally came to a stop. Then all the bubbles deflated, and then it came out. It was this really cool presentation and all that. Until about 3 days ago, when I started doing research on this, I thought that was the first time that we had ever landed any kind of rover, spacecraft, anything on Mars.
No shit.
Period. In the history of humanity.
Wow.
Was that time in 2003, 2004. So as I'm reading this and I'm like, wait a minute. What is this Viking lander? We landed on fucking Mars in 76?
Yeah.
So that's
is that a failure at the school system, or is that just I don't know. It's so strange to me, but knowing kind of how I grew up, and the nerd, that level of like NASA and everything else was kind of part of me growing up.
Yeah. Hey, special guest just walked into the studio. Yeah. Yep. You want to say hi to the people, or you just gonna? She's waving, but you guys can't see it.
You want dinner? No.
It'll have to be when we're done. Hold on, I'm gonna have to timestamp this now.
Somebody write this down.
All right, 52. Hold on, 52. Kristen interrupts show. So I can edit it out later.
Okay.
That's fixing it in post. Actually fixing it in post.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I'll leave when we're done.
Okay. So I'm here.
All right, thank you. So going back to what we were saying, think about when we talked about the Challenger episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it in that. Every time that we sent the space shuttle into space, I, as somebody who didn't know better, just thought we were going to the moon every time. Every time we launched somebody into space, I just assumed we were going to the moon.
Right.
So my knowledge of the space program was very limited, until I actually started paying attention, and really until the fucking internet came out and I was able to research this shit myself.
And it's funny too, because I feel like generally speaking, that's probably a good sample size of what most of the country believed.
Yeah.
What were we actually doing in space? Like, did they know that there was a Russian space station that went up? Did they know what Mir was until they heard about it on the news and it was fucking crashing through the atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
It's some 15 years later.
Yeah. Oh,
Did they know what
sure.
Space Lab was? You know, do you understand? Do they know what the Saturn V rocket is, or do they only know that because they saw Apollo 13?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's tough for me because it's kind of like us with Star Wars, right? It's hard to imagine that there's people like that don't understand Star Wars like
Yep.
we do, but we know they're out there, and I think that's kind of the same way with space and with like Mars in particular. But the one thing I will say with Mars is that there's always been like you knew what the Martian was. Like
Yeah.
you know what a Martian was. Like the show in the 50s, My Favorite Martian, you know, we had
Mhm.
the guy with the whoop, his antennas.
Or I think Marvin the Martian, but
Marvin from Bugs Bunny.
yeah.
Yeah, having the last name of Martin and Martian, like there's analogous there.
Yeah. And always knew it was the closest planet to us.
Right.
And I heard people talk about, oh yeah, maybe someday we'll go to Mars and all this, but it was really kind of background noise. And again, no fucking clue that we landed rovers and took pictures on the surface of Mars the year I was fucking born.
It's awesome.
So yeah, learned that 2 days ago.
That's awesome. See, that's researching for the pod actually helps us learn stuff.
Indeed,
because I certainly did too. I'm not going to pretend that I knew everything about Mars going into this, but I know for me, so I'm a Scorpio, right? And Mars was like the dominant planet for Scorpio. Like there's whoever's into that type of shit, like will tell you that, oh yeah, here's Mars inside Scorpio. But when I was in Scouts, we were at a summer camp and Scorpio was in the sky. And because I'm a Scorpio, I was like, oh wow, look, it's Scorpio. And then Mars was like in basically the dominant feature within Scorpio. And that's when it kind of like really like, wow, this thing is like it's connected somehow.
Yeah.
And I started like really not getting into it as much as I got into like the space shuttle stuff, but like really started to pay more attention to it. So yeah, it's public education notwithstanding, because I don't think either of us can say that the science departments at whatever school we're in, like we're doing anything like, because in 96, 97, well, you would have been out of high school by then.
Yeah.
But like there's some major events happening like with what we're doing on Mars that would have been interesting sitting in high school and paying attention to that.
Yeah. But even then, I seriously doubt the high school I came from probably would have gotten into that very much, if at all.
Right.
So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, the thing that still blows my mind, we talked about that video, you have no idea how big the universe really is.
Right.
Just still the idea of trying to wrap your fucking mind around the level of distances, even with our own solar system, not even getting outside of the solar system to the galaxy or the clusters of galaxies, and then the observable universe, just the ungodly enormity of that. Just thinking about the distance from us to Mars, which is the next closest heavenly body besides the moon.
Right.
And it's, what did we say? At its shortest, it's 35.8 million miles. At its absolute closest, because we're in like asynchronous orbits with Mars going around the sun and everything. So at the longest, it's 249.1 million miles.
Yeah, it's so the Earth is a very circular orbit around the sun, whereas the Mars is elliptical. So
yeah,
that's why instead of being equidistant each time we see it, it's can be that much further away. And when you get things like what happened this year when it was so bright in the sky.
Yeah, a month ago.
You had it was going through my notes, it was the closest that Mars has been to us in, over a decade. And it's the closest it'll be for like the next 15 years. Well, 2003 was like the closest
like it had ever been recorded, right?
Yeah. Closest in recent history, because I actually have some notes. When we get into the timeline, we'll talk about the time previous before 2003 when it was actually close.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's called not occasion. Fuck. The hell is that called?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, so all right. So why is Mars bright? Why is Mars so bright in the sky? Like why? So it's getting closer to us, right?
Right.
But it's not only just the distance; it's also the fact that we are in between Mars and the sun.
Yes.
So the sun is you're getting the full basically light off of Mars
Yeah, because Mars itself doesn't emit any light; it's
Right.
reflecting the light from the sun.
Exactly.
And that's what you're seeing.
So there's a term for it, and I can't think of it right now, and it'll come to me later when I find it in a note or something. But
Yeah,
the fact that in Mars's orbit, you get this event where Earth is in just the right position where you're getting basically the full effect. So and it gets super, super bright. And I took some pictures of it, when we had a new moon, and I was taking pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, and got some of Mars as well.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how red it is until it's that bright.
Yeah.
When you're looking up, and we have the benefit of Venus, right? The morning star or the evening star. So again, Venus is super, super bright, but it's a bright white ball in the sky. Whereas with Mars, when you're looking at it, it has that red to it. And you're just like that's the part that's even more fascinating to me.
Yeah. If you're paying attention, if you're just some schmuck who's just like, look up, look at all the stars, you may not even notice.
You have to look, look up.
But that's why, over the last month, it's been so fucking bright in the sky because again, it's the closest it's been to Earth in quite some time. And I think you and I, after recording the show about a month and a half ago, we walked outside. I looked up, I'm like, fuck, that one's bright. Is that Mars? And you're like, yeah. And we looked it up on your app. And so that was when it was just starting this like real close approach to Earth. So yeah, just thinking about that, 35.8 million miles at its absolute closest. And, at the speed that we can travel through space right now, that takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to get to. That's the big thing to wrap your fucking head around, is how long it takes going as fast as, human technology has ever traveled in a single direction for 6 months straight. To get there.
Yeah. And so, we're going to talk about a little bit later, what the feasibility of actually doing this in our lifetime.
Right. I think that's how we're going to kind of close this up.
Yeah.
But so for size wise, it's about half the size of Earth diameter wise. The Earth's diameter is 12,750 kilometers. Mars is 6,800. So about half the size.
Kilometers. Where the fuck do you think you are?
I was on Wikipedia when I got this.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Gravity wise, it's about a third of our gravity.
Yeah, 38%.
Yeah. So
100 pounds on Earth only weighs 38 pounds on Mars.
Man, so I'd be really, really light if I went to Mars.
Yeah, it would be good for me. I'd definitely take some weight off of my knees.
Yeah, but it's still not nearly as light as the moon, which is like half of Mars's gravity.
18%, I want to say. I can't even remember.
Like I didn't do percentage. I did meters per second squared.
Good. Or Wikipedia did meters per second.
Yeah, I didn't do shit. I clicked on a couple of links. So. Atmosphere. This is when we talk about Mars colonization and everything, I think people really have the wrong idea, because one of the big problems is it's 96% carbon dioxide.
Right.
So, people have always talked, I've always seen things, oh yeah, and by the next century we'll be colonizing Mars and all that. And I'm like, most idiots that are watching right now are thinking, oh yeah, I'll get up in my fucking sweatpants and my cup of coffee and go sit on my deck and watch the Martian sunrise.
Yeah.
If a human is ever on Mars, you will not be doing anything like that.
And honestly, this is when I did not see the movie The Martian. Okay.
I haven't either. I wanted to before we did this, but I didn't get a chance to see it.
I have read the book, and the book was a fascinating study on some feasibility. And we're going to talk a little bit later when we get into the timeline about, Von Braun wrote a book in the late 40s about going to Mars. And it was a very technical description. Like, obviously it's Von Braun, right? He is the rocket scientist that is responsible for almost all of our achievement. So when you have somebody that's going to write in that, okay, I'm going to take these very technical things and incorporate it into the story so that the realism is there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you get that with The Martian. as close as you're going to get to sitting with a cup of coffee, you know,
Yeah.
Otherwise known as growing potatoes and fucking on Mars, so you just fucking survive.
Mhm.
But it talks about, if you get nothing else out of this, like, read the book or watch the movie. I understand the movie is very good, but you know, get an idea of what that level of isolation would be on Mars.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that. I have something to add for that, but I want to
Sure. And
I want to ease it in. I just ease
it
in.
The other big fact that I wanted to bring up about Mars is the temperature. On average, I think the temperature on Mars is about minus 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
So I'm gonna do this fancy thing for the YouTube.
Ah, there you go.
We're gonna take a look at today's weather.
Yeah, let's
on
do
Mars.
Hmm?
So today's weather, it is, the high for today was 14 degrees Fahrenheit.
Jeez, I wonder where that was.
The low is negative 96.
Yeah.
So it's a little chilly.
It's pretty cold because they don't have nearly the robust atmosphere that we have on Earth. So they do have one, and there is still like a re-entry and everything else when you're going into the Mars. You know, you're descending into Mars,
Right?
But it's not the same as Earth's, and obviously there is no oxygen inside. So
and it's it's funny too, because if we don't get to mention it later, I'll just say it now. There's some of the earliest images that we got from some of these Mars missions. There's a story that one of the images that came back, it was, you know, colored. Like the NASA basically took here's what these elements are, and they put all the stuff, and they like basically artificially put color in, and they made the sky blue, and that made it out to the media and everything. When the reality is, the sky is more like a pink.
Yeah.
And it's because of what the atmosphere is made up of. Like, if you really understand why the sky is blue, and why the light from the sun actually is vibrating these molecules that is presenting like this blue in the sky. And when there's no sunlight, that we can see straight to the stars, because now those, you know, particles aren't being excited by the sun. The same thing happens on Mars, except that it's like this reddish pink.
Yeah.
Because of what the atmosphere is consisting of. And they have so many huge dust storms and everything else that are on there. But when you're standing there with your cup of coffee and watching the Martian sunrise, you're definitely not watching it on a fucking, you know, some clear blue sky, because that's not a thing.
So you mentioned the timeline. You want to just jump right into that, because you got like quite a few notes on here.
I do. I had like 11 pages of notes. But a lot of it's some of the fascinating stuff, because I wanted to learn something as we were doing this, because I have a lot of fucking nonsense jammed into my fucking dome about this. But I want to learn something too. So the names, right? We know Mars it's based on the Roman god of war, right? We go back to like the Babylonians, and they called it Nergal, and it was the king of conflicts. So the Babylonians called it Nergal, the king of conflicts. The Egyptians called Hardaker, the red one.
Hardakar.
Right. Something Egyptian, something.
Yeah.
But the red one, which makes sense, right? It's a red planet. It's obviously red, like we were just talking about. Even standing here with the city skyline of Philadelphia, as bright as it is, and kind of ruining our night viewing experience, you can still see that that light is red. It has that red tint to it.
Which, God, just imagine what it would have looked like, you know, back in the ancient Egyptian times, where there is no light pollution, and all you have is that clear fucking sky.
The blanket of the sky just raining on you, and why these celestial objects were the object of basically your deity, like, you know, the timing and seeing these heavenly bodies come through everything. That's a whole nother thing. I don't want to start going down a road.
Sure.
The Greeks called him Ares, the god of war.
Yep.
And we all know the Romans fucking all they did was steal shit from the Greeks. So they were like, oh no, we're calling it God of War too, but ours is going to be Mars, and that's what's stuck. Yeah. So that's its current naming event or nomenclature. So I want to talk about historically from like the 1600s.
Sure.
You're talking about like ancient times and what the sky all looked like. To put it in perspective, if we're talking about And this first bullet here I got is from 1609. So how long ago was that? 311 years ago? 411 years ago.
Yeah. I was gonna say, wait a minute.
So 4 centuries ago, in the 1600s, there were people studying like what Mars was doing. And
Right.
throughout the entirety of our basically our documented existence, no matter what's going on in the world, you can always look up, and there's some scientist or somebody that's looking up and they're paying attention to what's going on in the sky and not necessarily what's going on around them.
Mm-hmm.
Which you get to some of these timelines are like, there's some fucking heinous shit going on, with wars and everything else, and you still have all these discoveries being made. But in 1609, I'm just going to use last names because I'm not going to bore you with details. But Kepler, right? You're going to recognize a lot of these.
Yeah, we should know the name Kepler.
And he publishes a book called Astronomia Nova. And it's the new astronomy. And that book it wasn't just about Mars. It was really about how the planets move in the sky. And one of the kind of revelations for Mars is that he finds that it has this elliptical orbit, and that's why Mars, for being so bright, it doesn't have this consistent orbit where it would be like, okay, this is this predictable. You have to watch it for long periods of time to understand its predictability.
Yeah.
And so by making those observations, you could determine that it had an elliptical orbit. So that in that same year, Galileo sees Mars for the first time with a telescope that he made.
Yeah. So you got to wonder, like, what exactly did he see at that point? How good were the telescopes back then?
They weren't very good. And fact of the matter is, what they were looking at, they had the benefit of not having any light pollution, but they're still looking through the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So even with that, some rudimentary telescope, just like basically a spyglass type thing.
Yeah.
Where you have like 2 lenses and you're using those lenses to magnify. And what you're going to get is a fairly bright white light, basically. So
you're not seeing like the red mountains and all that.
No, you're not seeing the canals, which we're going to talk about here later in the 1800s, but you still get to view it with the telescope and document it. 50 years later, this guy called Huygens, it's Huygens. We're just going to go with Huygens.
Yeah,
he's got Huygens.
What a name.
He draws Mars. So he looks through a telescope that he made, and he actually draws Mars. And while he was observing it, he was able to make a determination that Mars actually had a 24-hour day. And there's a theme here that I'm going to hit on in this timeline. It talks about like how long the Martian day actually is. But he was able to discern in 1659 by observing Mars through a very rudimentary telescope that it had a 24-hour day, which to me is fucking fascinating.
It is.
Like the level of technology that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And same thing with ancient Egyptians and everything else.
Yeah, we're going to the 1600s,
Yeah.
which those people didn't have shit.
Yeah. Well,
their average lifespan was like 28.
Really? Was it that high?
I have no idea.
So anyway, we get a guy named Cassini, which people that follow anything with astronomy know who Cassini is. He also makes a determination about the Martian day as being 24 hours, but he more descriptive is 24 hours and 40 minutes. Now this is in 1666.
How the hell does he get so precise?
So it's straight about observation. So in 1672, when Huygens observes a white spot and makes a determination like, okay, here's the south pole of Mars, right? So they're able to actually get enough in the glass where they can see a major
landmark. Okay, and they can see it turning.
And then when you see that mark go back around. So if there's one of the observations they made was there's like a big like dark area, which they at the time they thought like, oh, that's probably an ocean or something like that, which obviously isn't the case. But so that dark spot though, they're able to see it kind of go around and make a determination on how long the day was.
Okay.
So Huygens goes and he observes this stuff at the South Pole. Bronco Fett, huge ass Huygens. When he makes this observation about what's at the South Pole, that this white spot and the fact that there could be like ice as we know it, like on Mars, now starts to kind of develop a little bit of this frequency where it's like, okay, if there's ice, if there's a pole like we have on Earth, then you start projecting more of like what Earth has onto Mars.
Sure.
Because that's what you're going to do. Like,
right.
It's a natural, like, you don't have anything else to compare it to. All you have is where we're standing.
Right. And you fast forward to today, and that's what most of these missions are about. They're about trying to find signs of some sort of life on Mars, which we'll get to. But, you know, you start making those correlations like, well, fuck, if they've got ice on a pole on this planet, then that means they could have water somewhere. If they have water, that's the building blocks for fucking life.
Right.
So maybe there's life on Mars.
And that's kind of where that starts. That kind of groundswell starts.
Yeah.
You know, when you fast forward to 2020 and they find like trace elements of water on the moon, it becomes a huge fucking thing. But anyway, so Huygens publishes a book called The Cosmotheros, and this is where he speculates about life on Mars. So he basically sees the potential for water on Mars, and then goes so far as to publish his speculation about there being life. So this is in 1698. Again, what else is happening in the world in 1698? I mean, there's a lot of like developing countries. There's feudal territories and shit going on with I think the Mongols. Is that the 1600s?
Goddamn Mongolians!
I could be totally off on that.
Oh yeah, I have no idea.
I'm terrible at history. So in 1719, Mars is the term is opposition, and I did have it in there. No, opposition is where it's close to the Earth, and the Earth is in the right position to get where it's in between Mars and the Sun. So you're getting the best look at it. So in 1719 is when it's the closest to Earth until 2003.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's quite a long span. You're talking, 300 years and a 301 years.
Yeah. Now, did you take note of when the next time that'll happen again is?
Oh, it's like 2065 or something.
It's more like 2665.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's some ridiculous number.
Yeah. And that sounds about right. 300 years go by. So not exactly something we're going to,
we won't see that again
in our lifetime. But yeah, so what's funny in 1719, when you have very, very little, like you have some lighting, like people have candles and gas lamps and things like that, but you don't have the amount of light pollution that you would now. Like you'd be able to ride outside of town and you'd fucking be in utter blackness.
No parents.
So when Mars was that bright in the sky, people actually started to panic. Think 1600s. Think Salem witch trials. Think all this. Like people start to fucking they get crazy shit in their head, thinking about like, oh my god, what's happening here? Like it's too bright in the sky. Something bad's going to happen. It was like this harbinger of doom. And you can, if you can just imagine it, like in those times, not before we have probes out there, before you get to that point in our civilization, and that it's just all about this thing is like some people over in fucking Europe have been looking at it through telescopes, where meanwhile, like in the States, in puritanical times, they don't know a fucking thing about astronomy or anything else. It's like, holy fuck, the witches are coming. So fast forward 1784, you got this guy named Herschel. He's a British astronomer. He assumes that Mars has an atmosphere and speculates that the Martian inhabitants probably enjoy a similar situation to our own. So again, it's kind of
so we weren't quite there yet.
He speculates correctly that Mars has an atmosphere, and what they were doing is they're looking for they're trying to use like a spectrometer to understand be able to look at the light that's coming off of Mars and make a determination, like, is it like, here's the elements that are in its atmosphere and things like that.
Well, fuck, that's what we're doing now when we're looking at, star systems that are fucking, hundreds of light years away from us.
Billions upon billions of miles away.
And that's how they're determining if like some of these planets potentially have like an atmosphere, is they're looking at like how the light's fucking refracting off of them and everything, and determining, what kind of particles are in the
Yeah, so
atmosphere.
if we sidebar into a little bit more science, like if you're wondering how that could be, if you understand that color as we see it is just it's a vibration.
Yeah.
Right? If color is a sound, then this light in here sounds like yellow.
Right.
Jason looks like white or sounds like white. You're pretty pale.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know what else to call you.
Yeah, that's
Peach?
fine.
I don't have a box of Crayolas here.
I could pretend to get offended, but you're right. So.
So if you understand it, like those vibrations or frequencies produce a wavelength, then we can use things like a radio telescope to listen to those wavelengths. If you're tuned to the right thing, like my tinnitus, I'm probably hearing color. That's why my fucking shit's all wonky all the time. But if you know that you can point a radio telescope out there and listen to those frequencies, then you can tell things like, okay, this particular color would indicate this gas or this trace element because that's what they're consisting of.
Yeah.
So fascinating stuff. In 1784, they weren't there yet, obviously. Right. But you see that the kind of technology with the telescopes, refracting telescopes, and you start developing bigger observatories and shit like that. You have in 1840, got this guy Beer and some other guy
another great name
von Madel, whatever. Not important. They observe Mars for thousands of days so that they can make exact determination of like how long Mars's day is. So when they're looking at it over a period of thousands of days, they say, and this is 1840, that the Martian day is 24 hours, 37 minutes, 22.1 seconds.
Jesus.
So they're able to get to it. Basically, we'll talk here in a second, but that's 0.1 off of how we know it today. 0.1 second. And that's how close they were in 1840.
Well, and it's pretty damn close to where they were in 1666.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it only gets closer.
Yeah.
So you got some guy named Kaiser. He calculates his Mars day to be 24 hours, 37 minutes, 22.62 seconds. And to put that in perspective, today's calculation is 24 hours, 37 minutes, 22.663 seconds, plus or minus 0.02002 seconds. So that's pretty fucking nat's ass for 1862 when we were getting ready to fight the Civil War.
Yeah.
And that's, again, you think about what's going on in the world, like where our weapons technology was and what we were doing with those weapons and get, through the Revolutionary War, you had, Revolutionary War veterans and people going into the Civil War, all this shit's happening in this time frame. But if you look at it just from the perspective of how we're able to look up and what we're able to see when we look up in that particular time frame.
Yeah, it's good that throughout all of these centuries, we've still had scientists who are able to stay out of the bullshit going on and still focus on their craft.
And it pays that Earth is so big that just because there's a conflict in the United States, it didn't necessarily affect anything what's going on in Europe. They have their own problems for sure. And like, especially with people like Galileo and fucking Newton, all these people that were like, it's heresy to fucking say that the heliocentric idea that the planets revolve around the sun as opposed to vice versa. That's a whole nother argument. But let's fast forward. So in 1877, okay.
So we're getting closer to current times.
Inching our way closer.
Yeah.
There's this guy named Giovanni Schiaparelli. Okay. He's looking at Mars and he's got a decent telescope, a refracting telescope, and he's looking at Mars and he sees these streaks on the surface of Mars. And he determines that they're called canalia is what they're called. This one particular classification of a marking that's on the planet actually changes the next 3 centuries how people view Mars, because this is when you say, okay, they found a canal on Mars, people immediately, like for our generation, we probably think more Panama Canal, and plus because we're in North America, Panama Canal is closest. Well, in 1877, the fucking Suez Canal was being built. which is a major, huge. It's one of those things. Again, you can see it from space.
Yeah.
You know, this huge project and huge undertaking for human beings to make a canal. The idea that something like that is on Mars basically takes that narrative that they're not, that there could be life on Mars. So like there had to be life on Mars because they fucking built a canal.
Right.
And it pushes literally centuries into until people really stop thinking about, hey, there's active life on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1894. So this is 94. So this is 100 years before I graduated high school. This guy named Lowell, he reports that there's no evidence, not any evidence of canals on Mars through his observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, which in 1894, Arizona, pretty new area of the United
it's like
States
the old West.
Yeah,
at that point.
Again, thinking about what's going on around them, and all right, we're going to set up an observatory because it's fucking dark as shit here.
Yeah,
get a really good view of the sky.
Yeah, forget those Native Americans that are right there. We'll fucking give them some blankets, and that'll be the end of that.
Yeah, and we'll have a holiday that we won't even attribute to them. And really, excuse me. So skip over a lot of it. And those were kind of the high points within those centuries that I thought were important to talk about.
It's interesting seeing the progression, though, and the interest in Mars going all the way back to then, and then how they've tracked it over the years and how they determined like the Mars day and the elliptical orbit and all of that. It's really neat to think that they came up with all of that shit hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, and they were able to look at they actually did make a determination at where the axis was on Mars, and they understood that the polar ice caps actually melted in the spring and came back. Like they were able to observe these things.
Yeah.
And just because they were looking through the telescopes and looking up with no other, that's the thing. When we start talking about, we're going to get here and talking about von Braun and everything else, like the space race as it was and getting to the moon and everything, you can't not have that conversation without talking about the Cold War and talking about
the space race
with the Soviets.
Yeah.
You didn't have that in fucking 1865. You didn't have that in 1894 because they had no concept of fucking sending a rocket with people on it up into fucking space. That was like, I think if you were telling somebody a story like that, they'd fucking probably burn you at the stake. Like, oh, it's him. It was all bright because of that fucker.
Yeah.
Burn him.
Well, of course, I think as we, especially got closer to like 1894, that's when, your writers like your Jules Verne's were starting to come about, right?
That was in 1917, I think.
Okay, so he was still a little bit.
There was a book. I saw it in my research. It was a book that actually came out. Gulliver's Travels actually talked about. That was in 1917, and he talked about Mars having moons. Mm-hmm. Which was, and it was just a coincidence. They had no possible way of knowing that there were moons there yet.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, that's not true. In 1877, they discovered the moons, Phobos and Deimos. Anyway, I want to talk about von Braun.
Okay. Yeah. Because you brought this up last week in a private conversation we had, and I found it very interesting. So I didn't get a chance to read it, but I want to know what you know about it.
Yeah. So Werner von Braun, if you're not familiar with the name, he is the German. He was our German, right? He was one of the Germans that defected from Nazi Germany and became, basically defected to us, and then we wrung him out for all the fucking the V1 V2 rockets that the Germans were building.
Yeah.
And throwing in England.
Mm-hmm.
There's whole great stories about, they're great stories, not great events. Now talking about like von Braun was not an innocent guy, right? He had Nazi blood on his hands. Like even though they were working these missile programs, developing this technology, he was doing it as like he was not somebody that was a gunpoint doing this. He was doing it because it was a benefit to him. And they had a lot of fucking enslaved human beings that they used to cut holes in the mountains so that they can fucking build these rockets in secret and do all this shit. And there's piles and piles of bodies that can be attributed to von Braun's hand. But that's a that's details for another story. We get von Braun. We're like, okay, we're going to use this fucker to develop rockets for us.
Yeah.
So he ultimately he's the guy who sets us in motion and makes the best rocket that ultimately becomes Saturn V, which is what we take to the moon. Von Braun was extremely involved with President Kennedy's moonshot.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, like met with him personally, like huge, instrumental in making all that happen from a technological standpoint. And there was another guy named Goddard, from the Goddard Space Center and shit like that. Goddard also was part of like developing for the United States some of our earliest rockets. Von Braun's technology that he brought from Germany actually made all that shit better so that we could do that. Again, dissertation for a whole nother fucking event, right?
Yeah.
So von Braun in 1949, this motherfucker said he writes a story, right? He's freshly liberated from fucking Nazi Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he writes this story about going to Mars.
Now, is this like a fictional story, or
So
is this like a blueprint for how we would go to Mars?
So I'm gonna read. This is out of the publisher's note in the beginning of the story, and I think it kind of encompasses what I wanted to hit as the high notes from this thing.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that he wrote it in 1949.
Yes.
But this guy is the guy who built the rockets that ultimately got us to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
The Mars project is a technical specification for a human mission to Mars that von Braun wrote in 1948 with a provisional launch date of 1965. He envisioned an enormous scientific expedition involving a fleet of 10 spacecraft with 70 crew members that would spend 443 days on the surface of Mars before returning to Earth. Think of the specificity here. This is a rocket scientist writing a story. He wrote it with those fucking details. He did all the math. Like if you go back and look at the reference material that's in the back of this book, he references all the fucking math and shit that he did to do this. So it's
I am the reference.
But you look at it and you go like this is the vision, right? This is the ultimately his imagination, his foresight, his level of engineering, like having enough of imagination. And this is a place that we're failing right now, is this lack of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And developing engineers and developing scientists going forward. Write a story and think about the most outlandish thing you can possibly do. Like fucking going to Mars.
Yeah.
Like not even talking about going to the moon, going to Mars in 1949. So anyway, all these fucking people, very, very specific. The idea was that they would launch everything into low Earth orbit, basically where the International Space Station is.
Yep.
They'd hundreds of thousands of metric tons of fucking materials to build the rockets that would ultimately take all these people to Mars.
Right.
So
you'd assemble them there in orbit.
Right. So again, understanding that what's the most difficult thing when it comes to any kind of interplanetary or going to the moon or anything else?
Well, the initial liftoff.
Right. It's getting the weight up out of and breaking through the fucking Earth's atmosphere. Mm-hmm. That's why you need a rocket like the Saturn V, or you need these giant Falcon X
and
rockets.
And that's a point that we need to make when we talk about like potential humans going to Mars.
Yeah.
Because there lies a challenge versus, the rovers that we've landed. If you land a human being on Mars, you got to be able to get him back.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come back to that.
Yeah. But ultimately, the von Braun's vision was interesting because we never came close to that. Like there's,
the level of expense that would go into something like that is fucking astronomical.
And in this story, it talks about like, again, it's basically historical fiction, right? As he's writing it. Yeah. So it's very, very detailed, like talking about like Mars's orbits and shit like that, like what Earth, and here's these numbers and here's these rockets, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's telling a fictional story about all these humans going to Mars, having interactions there and everything else. So it's like 90 pages. It's not a terribly interesting read, but it's fascinating that somebody with that mind who's so involved in the American space program, which what we're getting ready to talk about with all these Mars missions.
Yeah.
They happened in a very, very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like we went from the 50s when we put the first, like when Sputnik happens in 53, right? And then the tail end of this, like the last footsteps are made on the moon.
Yep.
You're talking about a span of 2 decades, basically.
Yeah.
And in these 2 decades, so much happened.
It's very, very fast.
So many fucking launches and so much other stuff. And because you had this space race with getting to the moon and doing all these things, we're developing these rockets that were the backbone of our intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to take this and all right, well, let's send these Mariner craft. Let's send Mariner 3 and Mariner 4, right? Not only just launch 1, launch 2. Like these early missions that we're talking about going to Mars, they launched fucking a pair of them at a shot. Because in A Pale Blue Dot, the book by Carl Sagan, he talks about the fact that that book was written in 96. NASA had humans have a 33% failure rate for anything any launches that they were doing.
We're just talking any space missions.
Any missions going up. You had like a 33% of failure. And it's crazy to think about that. It's like a baseball stat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, we're gonna spend $100 million to put this thing in, and it may or may not work.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be the best. It might not be.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about some of the missions?
Yeah, because so many of these I had no fucking clue about. And it all started with the Soviets in the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're the first ones that are like, we're launching these fucking these orbitals or whatever you want to call them, just be it satellites or whatnot that they had intended to, put into orbit around Mars. And they all fucking failed.
Mm-hmm.
Like every one of them. It started off with 6 failures. And you got to think about it. Yeah, it's kind of fun to laugh at the Russians and everything during this time. But at the same time, you have to think about what we're dealing with here. You're launching something from the surface of the Earth. Again, 6 to 8 months to get there.
Right.
At best. And there's no instant communication back and forth. First of all, this is internet and pre-fucking technology that we have right now. Even the technology that we have right now when we're launching shit. The pucker factor has got to be through the fucking roof for that entire 8 months that your fucking probe or that your fucking lander is on its way to fucking Mars.
Yeah, right now with Perseverance, like it is like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
right?
Those engineers and those scientists that are running this program right now are probably all going to fucking die in 10 years because of the stress that they're enduring right now. Yeah, it's like destroying their hearts.
Yeah, maybe, but this isn't like you watch Apollo 13 and you see you see all that. They're all fucking smoking like chimneys and fucking going and drinking and smoking more.
Yeah.
You would hope that it's a relatively healthier lifestyle compared to those days. But still, you're exactly right. And the failure, the Soviets were putting payload on missile bodies with the same intention that the United States did.
Yeah,
they're improving and developing their intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Mm-hmm.
So these Atlas V rockets and the rockets that primarily that put up a lot of this shit in the 60s and 70s, they're based off of that missile technology. The Russians were doing the same thing, and if we look back and see some of the studies that talk about what the effective rate of the Soviet technology would have been if they'd actually intended to launch, and those percentages were not very high.
Yeah,
of launch. Whereas in the United States, most of that shit's classified, but you can anticipate a lot higher level just because of what we were putting into it with maintenance and dedicating to the crews and everything else that are manning that stuff. But
yeah, so we had our first success in 64. Or no, 1965. It launched in 64. So this is the thing. With all of these missions, they have 2 dates in there. The dates they launched and the dates that they actually fucking got there. And this one, it launched in November of 64 and it arrived July 15th of 65, which is just fucking crazy to think about. But yeah, it was the first successful flyby of Mars of a fucking satellite, I guess, the Mariner 4.
Yeah, and so when it flew by, it's a note. It had it took the pictures and it put them on like a tape recorder. Like, this is the technology they had. They put it on a tape recorder and then they broadcasted off of the tape in bursts to be able to handle the traffic. So you're talking about a period of fucking weeks to get one image from what it had done. And it took the pictures that you got back were pictures of like a cratered, almost like lunar surface.
Yeah.
Which, must have been, can you imagine like you're sitting there fucking waiting, you're like watching the paint peel, waiting for fucking this thing to show up at Mars. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're getting a picture. There's one pixel. Smoke, drink, smoke. Another pixel.
Yeah.
It's fucking just painful.
Mm-hmm.
But that fucking particular thing, it lasted for like 3 years. This technology, they expected like, okay, if we can just go to Mars and do a fucking flyby, whew, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then it fucking keeps going. And as we talk about more of these missions, and we're talking about the Curiosity rover, that it had no intentions of lasting as long as it did.
Yeah.
Credit the scientists that built in this level of redundancy. It was like, okay, we want to make sure that it has the redundancy to be able to get to at least where we can get the shit that we need. And if it stays longer than that, fucking great.
Yep.
It's fucking, it's a win-win.
Yeah. So all throughout the 60s, we had a few successes for the United States. We had Mariner 7. We had Mariner 6. 4, 6, and 7 were all success. Obviously, there were Mariners in between that weren't. Russia, every single thing they attempted in the 60s failed. All these flybys, all these orbiters they tried to put into orbit, none of them were successful. Russia's first success didn't come until 71, when they finally got a successful orbiter around Mars. So that just kind of shows where we were versus them during this time frame. And again, all of this is during the fucking rush to get to the moon also. Mm-hmm. So yeah, throughout all of these, we're either preparing to put men on the moon, or we've done it and are planning successive missions.
Some of the things that we were able to do getting these sensors to the moon immediately translated into, okay, how do we get this same sensor package onto Mars?
Right.
And so it's kind of a proof of concept, which we're going to talk about later, is why the Artemis program that NASA is currently running is so important, why the lunar missions are going to be important to getting to Mars ultimately.
Yeah. So the Russians actually got the first lander on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So in 71, December of 71, they got a lander on the moon, failed pretty much immediately afterwards, but they technically did get the first lander on there. I think it was lost 14.5 seconds after transmission start. So yeah, they landed. They're like, yes, we're here. And then
probably the thing was dead before they even got the radio transmission.
Right, probably. So they had a partial failure of a rover that same year. And then I guess Mariner 9 was the first orbiter to be successful. So the putting a probe in fucking orbit and have it successfully maintain orbit for over a year, 516 days.
Yeah, Mariner 9 was the first artificial satellite of Mars.
Yeah.
So
and then you have more failures until the Viking program.
Right.
So this was when my mind was kind of blown doing research, because again, I thought the first fucking landers that we had on Mars didn't happen until the 2000s. So when I went back and read this and read that, like, oh fuck, we actually put shit on Mars in the fucking mid 70s, that blew my mind. And the fact that, like, I don't know if you've looked back at some of those pictures from that, but they're pretty good. It started off with some black and white pictures, and I think they eventually got a color picture out of them. Now, I don't know if that's the one that you were talking about where NASA colored it in themselves.
I think that was. Yeah.
Okay.
And they had to recant from what they had pushed out.
Yeah.
I think it made it to the major media networks, and then they were like, yeah, no, that's not right.
Yeah. So the year of our births, this was happening. And maybe one of the reasons why I didn't really hear about it was by the time I was old enough to remember shit, it had been, 4 or 5 years in the past, and people probably stopped caring.
And it's important to note too that these were kind of the last orgasms of the space race.
Yeah.
Because the last moon last men to walk on the moon was in 1972.
Yep.
So,
Which, by the way, there's a documentary out about that looks really good.
is there?
I think it's on Netflix.
Oh yeah, fuck,
Net-
I gotta watch it.
Might be. Well, you got to pay for it though. It's
On Netflix. You gotta pay for it.
Okay, maybe it's Amazon. But I remember seeing a fucking trailer for it. I'm like, oh my god, this looks so good. It's talking about that last crew that went to the moon,
Right.
and like everything they were able to accomplish, how important it was.
Oh my god, they did so much shit on that fucking mission. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
Showed the dude driving in the fucking thing,
Yeah.
and
that's we need to talk. That's definitely for another.
Mhm.
The moon stuff is for another time. But the point I was trying to make is this era in the 70s, going into the 70s and early 80s, was most of the stuff. It's just like anything with the military, right? If you're gonna do it in fucking 1976, then that shit probably started in 1972.
Right.
So it's probably like, okay, here's this funding line to fucking make this happen. And throughout all of this, NASA's had to justify like what is the benefit? If we're not racing the Soviets, because they can, they obviously they got a thing on Mars, but what are we getting out of it besides the fact that this is exploring a planet outside of us that could tell us a lot about our origins?
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's the purpose of all of this stuff, right? Sending the Pioneer probes out past out into the it's not Pioneer.
Oh, Voyager.
Voyager, thank you.
Yeah.
Pioneer's a whole nother thing. Send a Voyager out there fucking into deep space, or it'll be out there forever.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of that? Well, these radio telescopes and everything. Sidebar, did you see that they're going to fucking close the Arecibo radio telescope, the one in Puerto Rico?
No.
Yeah, because apparently it got damaged in a storm, and they were like doing all this study to see, we're going to fix this thing and get it back. Apparently, it's like it costs way too much money to try and fucking fix it, so they're going to fucking shut it down.
No shit.
Yeah,
that sucks.
So you want to get a good picture of that. It's in Contact, actually. They go on site, they're walking around that.
I really enjoyed that movie, honestly.
It is a good movie.
I know a lot of simps out there are like, that movie sucks.
And look, I read that book also.
Yeah.
And saw the movie. I was fine with the movie. I was fine how that movie portrayed, some of the details of the book.
Yeah.
Was it a little campy in some spots? Yeah, absolutely. But it was good. Yeah. Anyway, Viking.
Yeah. So the Vikings were our first landers basically to get onto Mars, and happened in the 70s.
So
do we have,
I think one of the big things, like there's all kinds of shit, like Google the Viking stuff when it came out, but and for depiction and stuff, like, you can find all that shit on the internet.
Yeah.
The thing I took out of this is the first time that landers were powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators. So basically nuclear powered landers.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. So those were, it's create electricity from the heat given off by natural decay of plutonium, which in The Martian, like is a key part of the fucking plot. The rovers, a lot of these satellites, these long-term things, they are harnessing the power of this radioactive decaying plutonium to be able to generate things like heat, to be able to keep the thing from freezing over.
Right.
At the same time, use heat exchangers to stay cool. Fascinating level of science.
Yeah,
goes into that.
The engineering that goes into that is through the fucking roof. So, and the lifespan of a lot of these, like we talked about, most of them existed for far longer than anyone had anticipated. The Viking 2 orbiter, or the lander, operated for 1,281 sols, which is like one of their years. 687
days.
Yeah. So
is a year on Mars.
Yeah. So it was a lot. Same for the first lander, the Viking 1. And going through the history, it looks like we had another lander in 96 and 97. Lasted about a month, July, August, 2 months. So I don't know what the story is with that. The Mars Pathfinder.
Yep.
But I don't remember hearing dick about that.
Oh yeah, it's the Sojourner. I remember it was a blip on my radar at the time.
Well, yeah, because you and I were both very early into our Air Force careers at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, something like that was just not on my radar.
Yeah, that's one of those things that back in those days, and really internet's in its infancy at that time, but it was, if you're watching the 10 o'clock news, or you're watching the 6 o'clock news with Tom Brokaw, and they'd usually have NASA like had airtime, it seemed like, and through a lot of the things that I've read, especially going through the Cold War, NASA had like a certain amount of airtime. Like, okay, we're going to talk about what's going on in NASA, like what event is happening, like what's launching.
Yeah.
And even though for most people nobody gives a shit, but on the national news stage, like you'd have like the Dan Rathers and Tom Brokaws of that day would fucking talk about it, even if it was for a second.
Yeah.
And I think that's how some of that shit kind of came across my radar, or at least got me to a point where like, oh wow, I heard something, let me investigate that.
And then again, when it really hit my radar were Spirit and Opportunity in 2004. So that was when I don't know if it was a combination of the internet. The internet had finally started to come out as like a major source of news or what, but it really hit my radar when these two fucking landed in January of 2004.
Yep.
Because it was all over the place. Like I said, there were those animated, those CG animated clips that basically showed how it got into orbit, and then the poofy balloons and deflating and all that.
And I find a picture of that,
and
it's actually pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and I was watching like a TED Talk a couple of days ago where a guy from NASA explained like, yeah, when it bounced those first few times, the height that it would bounce up to was about the height of the Empire State Building on those first few bounces. And then it still traveled for miles as it was slowly starting to lose momentum.
You have to aerodynamics in something that has such less atmosphere than ours.
Yep.
If you're
less
talking
gravity.
About, you have less gravity and just less atmosphere. So you have less friction, less air friction to be able to stop something. So you have missions that come. I think the Russians actually did it first with I don't know, don't quote me on that, but basically a giant fucking parachute.
Yeah,
like it's something that has to be so enormous because it has to catch the equivalent amount of air that a small parachute would work in normal an atmosphere on Earth. So figuring this shit out, putting the fucking Judgment Day style like just basically this big giant bubble, the fucking bubble wrap around the fucking lander. It's just absolutely fascinating. Not what they're doing with Perseverance.
Now, what is the technology they're using for?
I'm pretty sure the Perseverance is using the parachute technology.
Okay.
So basically, you're creating a giant an air surface, and using the resistance. And I think there's some thrust involved in that too. We can start
some reverse thrust. Well, just want to finish talking about the Spirit and Opportunity real quick. They landed in 2004 and they lasted for a long fucking time. Like I think Spirit lasted about half as long as Opportunity, but Opportunity went for let me see. Last contact was in June of 2018. So 14 years. And then they declared it dead February of 2019.
It's like it just stops. All right, not transmitting anymore.
Yeah.
Or not responding to commands. And because that's a big part of it. It's like, hey, we're sending some sort of command to do something with it.
Yeah.
When I was doing research, one of the polar ones, they were talking about they knew how they were using one of the satellites they put in Mars orbit to take pictures of where the probe was.
Yeah.
They were doing core sampling into the fucking ice caps to try and determine like how basically the density of the ice cap and how much liquid water and everything is at.
Sure.
And apparently, like when it finally gave up the ghost, it had like these solar arrays that were on it that it stopped taking command. So when they flew the satellite over and took a picture of it, they could tell that like basically they froze over. Like everything had frozen over. So now it was just fucking, it was done.
Now it's just there. It's like an icicle.
Yeah.
Which is fucking cool to think about. And this is something else to think about when you're thinking about these rovers. And it's not some fucking dude with a remote control here on Earth fucking just like, all right, I'm now going to turn here. Zzz. Oh, now I'm going to extend the arm. The distance that we're at, the speed of light still takes 20 minutes to get from Earth to Mars and vice versa. So the commands, the level of patience that you have to have for issuing commands, waiting for fucking responses, it's, you know, a 40-minute back and forth.
Yeah, you
basically.
figure, like we didn't talk about it in the beginning, but the light. So when you're looking at the light from Mars, when it's at its closest, that light is 3 minutes old.
Yeah.
At its closest.
Yeah.
At its furthest, it's at 22 minutes old. So that's the speed of light. That's not even like sending a command and getting a round trip out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. I think I said 5 days, or I said some bullshit the other day, which thankfully people in the chat corrected me. But that's still a long time. That's a long time to send a signal out and wait for a response.
Yeah.
And this is something that they portrayed actually pretty well, I think, in The Martian.
Yeah.
Is they talked about these differences in how long it takes to actually command something or get a message traffic and receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with normal radio stuff. Now they start talking about like lasers that are being able to communicate via laser. Now you're getting closer to that light speed command, but it still has to travel that distance.
Yeah. And then moving on, we had where did it go? The Curiosity rover land in 2012, and it's still fucking going.
Yep. It's
still out there. It's got a fucking laser on it. They used to do like laser samples and everything else, and it's a very, very well designed rover. Obviously, because 8 years later, it's still going strong,
still kicking, still taking. And this is one of those. As you get into it, you look at it like, okay, what happens when something breaks?
Yeah.
And the ability that they built subsystems into these machines that they could actually repair themselves. Like, okay, they recognize that this particular thing is broken. They have redundancy in the systems, and they actually have abilities to fix themselves.
Yeah, which is crazy.
When something breaks. And it's still true robotics. There's no AI in this.
Mm-hmm.
But you put a subsystem into something that says, okay, when this fails, run this.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll go and it'll run that fucking thing and potentially make a patch for, okay, we're not getting power. Let's run this subroutine so we get fucking power.
Yeah.
And those things are built into those machines, and they fucking update them. They update the fucking firmware through space.
Yeah, which is insane.
Oh, hey, we figured out how to fix this thing. And I forget which mission it was, but it was with Voyager. And they took scientists and said, okay, shit, this thing broke. Let's take the version of this. Like, we got our Voyager that's sitting here in the shop,
mm-hmm.
and let's fucking figure out, let's hook it up to the computer. Let's do this shit, fucking do. And they come up with the program to say, okay, let's feed this to it, and then it'll fix itself.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to do with these technologies, because it's not real-time control. There's no such thing as real-time control. When you're outside of these, these distances.
Yeah. Plus, we're investing a lot of fucking money into these programs.
Yeah.
So you want it to last as long as possible. So having that level of redundancy is pretty fucking important.
No Bucks, no Buck Rogers.
Indeed. So now there's some stuff in between that we don't really have to deal with, but now we have the newest rovers that are rover plus attachment. Right. That are heading to Mars. They took off in July of this year,
which is awesome.
I think we briefly talked about that in one of our podcasts.
Yeah, there was some nerdgasm happening when that was going on.
And they're expected to land February 18th of 21. So 3 months from now.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon. They did a
so we'll have to do a look back after that happens.
You were talking about how it enters, and so they're actually doing a
it was.
they're doing a parachute and a powered descent. So
Okay.
they're going to deploy the parachute to fucking slow it down, and then they're going to use this. There's a graphic here on the screen for if you're watching on YouTube, that this sky crane maneuver. So they're actually going to use thrusts to decelerate, and it's actually like a crane.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of like a helicopter, and it'll drop Perseverance onto the deck
Yeah.
safely. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's the trick to all this shit, right? So once this shit starts happening, like
it's out of your hands.
You're just watching it.
Yeah.
Like you're watching it 20 minutes old. You're like, fuck.
Yeah. So that's what you've got the fucking pucker factor going.
What is happening over there?
It's my mother tried to call me apparently.
Oh,
so
asking you about your tattoo?
Maybe. I don't know if she's tuned in yet, but if you can see it, Mom, there it is.
But yeah, so this is, I mean, for us, this is this modern day equivalent, right? There's so much that's on the Perseverance that we didn't get out of curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting these super high definition cameras that you didn't have before. It's able to packetize the information better, so you're going to get higher reliability imagery. You have microphones. Like this is, and it's just, they actually they kicked it on a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked on the onboard microphone, and so you could go like all of this stuff. You want to like totally nerd out on Mars stuff. Go to mars.nasa.gov. It's got more shit on there than you can fucking possibly imagine.
Incredible resources, really cool graphics.
And we're gonna throw some graphics up, here in a second to go along with this. But yeah, it's like the idea that this thing is fucking blitzing through space right now, and
so basically halfway there,
and they're running a fucking routine. It's like, okay, let's ops check the fucking. They took a picture with one of the cameras, like so things all folded up still.
Yeah.
So it took a picture, and it's like it's of a fucking wiring harness. It could be anything ever. Like we recognize from our days as maintainers, right? You just have this fucking wrapped up wiring harness. And then, but the sound of it, they have like a 19 seconds of it's basically this cooling motor.
Yeah.
That's running. And the idea that you're listening to something that's fucking being thrown through space right now that ultimately is going to land on Mars. Then you get to hear, you're going to be able to hear the fucking rover just kind of.
Yeah. Or hopefully the rover will stop and it'll just have the mic on and you'll be able to hear the ambient sounds of the Mars surface.
The fucking some dust storm, the sound of the dust storm fucking going in.
Probably.
The dust storms on Mars are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane how immense they are.
Yeah, because there've been some observations like that was what caused one of the fucking Russian craft to fail when they got there. They didn't realize how big this fucking dust storm was going to be that they were trying to land in, and it fucked everything up.
Yeah, the Mars weather is a fucking thing. Like if you're listening to us on the podcast and you want to see the imagery that we have, go to YouTube. But they have basically these orbiters that are going around. I'm showing it on the graphic. This is basically a current look at what Mars looks like right now and what's floating around it. And they're using these to make determinations about the Martian weather.
Yeah.
And predictability of these storms and stuff like that. And again, this is where the Martian actually does a good job.
Yeah.
They do a real good job of portraying like the weather patterns, the enormity of the mountains. And these,
we haven't even talked about the mountain, which is apparently the largest mountain in our entire solar system. Not just on Mars, not just between Mars and Earth. Apparently, there is a mountain on Mars that is the largest observed.
There's a
mountain.
Giant volcano that's on Mars.
Yeah,
and there's all these plateaus, and you have basically, I think where Perseverance is landing, I could be lying, but one of the missions had landed like basically really close to one of these watersheds.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, you're looking at the Mississippi River Delta, where you have all this like these streams of water that are coming to make up and ultimately go into the Gulf. They have areas on Mars that are like this. And the idea is that if we can get close to that and do some core sampling, that way we can get to something that will find a microorganism or find something that was living. Because let's face it, the idea here is that Mars is not the most habitable place in the world, but it's also not inhabitable.
Right.
not
And it
habitable.
shares a lot of properties with Earth that we've talked about.
Right.
So
it's the surface temperature gets fucking cold, but
Yeah.
you have systems these days that from an environmental standpoint, you can control some of that, right?
Yeah.
But for me, like if we're extrapolating this into like what looking at the solar system, and Earth is in this perfect place for us as humans, right? It's in temperature wise and all the fucking water that we need, and the gaseous anomalies that allow us to have breathable oxygen and all this other shit, right? It's a perfect spot, the Goldilocks zone,
Yeah.
is it called, right? Mars is just on the outside of that.
Mhm.
And there are theories out there that said with the creation of Earth, like when Earth was created, it was basically a collision of two planetary bodies that basically gives us the moon,
Yeah.
right? This from a size standpoint compared to the size of the Earth, our moon is fucking enormous. It's
Yes.
fucking enormous. It's not the largest moon by any stretch of imagination. I mean,
But
Titan
compared to the size of the Earth.
right, it's huge. So the idea that maybe two planetary bodies hit, and in that primordial mix and of spinning and gravity and everything else, then suddenly starts cooling and creates this body.
Yeah.
Whereas with that type of event in the gravity well that is where the sun sits, was Mars closer to the Goldilocks zone? Was Mars closer before that? Does an event like that happen, and the relatively innocuous Earth orbit that keeps us pretty much the same distance from the sun all the time? Is Mars is ours the anomaly, or is Mars's orbit an anomaly?
Good question.
There's a lot of and these are the reasons that as human beings we're going to constantly ask ourselves, like, where, why, where do we come from, why are we here?
Well, and the real question is, has life, any form of life, existed somewhere else outside of Earth, or were we just the fucking anomaly? Right. So and that's, if that question can be answered, then obviously that opens up so many possibilities for what else is out there in the fucking universe.
Yeah, so to be able to get to that question and answer that question, the way that NASA is viewing it right now, we have to go to the moon first.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a point of contention with a lot of people. Like, okay, we've been to the moon before. Why would we need to go again? And NASA is doing a really good job of, putting information out there with the Artemis program and everything else. Is like, okay, the science that we discover to be able to exist on the moon directly translates into what we can put together and fucking send toward Mars.
Sure, yeah.
Because you're talking about the radiation exposure.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about long-term effects of living in space, because it's going to take months to get there. Then you're going to be living on this planet. Like, what's it going to do to your body? What's it going to do to your cells?
And I sent you that link, right? The experiment they did where they had the three people live in isolation and like basically mimic if like they were living on Mars for a few months or whatever, and just the social aspect of that and the emotional aspect of the isolation. You're going to have to pick some very strong-minded people to make it through this.
Right now, as we celebrate 20 years of the International Space Station, which is still, to me, is mind-blowing that it's been up there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Something that started with shuttle missions, and now we have Crew Dragon is going up there, with Crew One's up there with this. They have 7 astronauts right now on the International Space Station.
Yeah.
And what they're doing with experiments and everything else, a lot of that science is going to help Earth, but a lot more of it's going to tell us how we can survive in space and how we can survive in deep space, because that's the only place, when you're in a microgravity, that's the only time you can even attempt these things.
Yep.
And we didn't have if you think about what it took to get to the moon, just the actual mechanics of fucking getting to the moon and what we were able to do once we got there, like it really, I think, trying to remember what movie it was that I saw, but there's a good representation of basically might have been the right stuff, where they talk about what these fucking astronauts are. They're basically geologists. Like, okay, here's we're going out to this fucking mesa out here. This is what the moon's going to look like. Let's start looking for rocks, and what can you determine from these rocks? So you have fucking test pilots that are going out and being taught how to be geologists.
Yeah.
You know, they're for the most part were engineers and could translate that. Now in the space station, you have biologists. You have, you know, they're not test pilots. They got balls. Fucking anybody who's willing to fucking sit on top of it's basically a ballistic missile and fucking get launched into space. That shit's fucking amazing.
Yeah, well, because we talked about it with the Challenger, you know, because it's not guaranteed.
Yeah,
you know, one small thing. And I just recently watched a documentary on the one shuttle that
Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia, and you know what happened with that, with the foam and the damaging the fucking the front end of the wing. It's like fuck.
That's another one where. That's another one where we are still the humans that we send into space are expendable. And that's something that as astronauts, you have to fucking be okay with that.
And yeah, they have to know that.
Yeah.
Like they have to know that this day could be their fucking last.
Right.
If
Because
like even one little thing goes wrong.
Because honestly, to get Columbia, Dave Martin, with only what information I've gleaned from the fucking media, but being a huge shuttle nerd, I can tell you that they knew that the potential was there for that to happen with Columbia. But what were you going to do? You're going to launch another shuttle
to go
pick them up, and you know the shuttle. You think about the size of these things. I wish I brought my. I got a little space shuttle I'll bring in that we can have for reference. But
yeah,
the shuttle's not that fucking big,
and
it's
like a small airplane.
Putting 7 people on the shuttle to live is, you know, they're not in this huge space, so you're not going to go up and fucking get 14 people into the fucking shuttle. There's, you know, so what were you going to do? And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to with those risks.
Yeah,
especially when you have a 33% fail rate. You know, and that's the, I think as humans, especially this day and age, there is there's some reticence about sacrificing so much money for something that could fail. Not less about the human lives, but just about the money.
It's
knowing that there's this high potential of failure. And this is why like our commercial launch vehicles are going to be so important. Because when you have somebody like an Elon Musk, or you have these you know, like in fucking, oh shit, we just mentioned it. Oh my god, so much data banging around my head. The fucking movie, the Jodie Foster movie that I Contact. Thank you.
Oh, the old guy from that.
Yeah. So you had these fucking old, you know, people that, okay, they have nothing else to spend their money on. Let's spend it on fucking getting our shit together and getting out in space. Without that, we would be nowhere.
Oh no, I understand.
We'd still be servicing fucking the Hubble telescope.
Yeah. Well, and I want to kind of backtrack real quick to something you were saying about the expendability of human lives and everything. And you got to think about it. This is just like going to the fucking space station or going to the moon and back. Think about a mission to Mars and talking about a manned human mission to Mars, because that's kind of where we're going to end up here. And again, 6 to 8 months just to fucking get there.
Yep.
I can't even imagine that. Like, think about the first few days as you're looking back and you're seeing the Earth getting fucking smaller and smaller, and you're like, still got 6 months to go.
Yeah.
You know, and you maybe you reach that halfway point and you're like, if anything goes wrong, I'm just fucking dead right now. There's no turning around. There's no.
So there's if you look at what at the International Space Station and what they do every day, they're fucking busy nonstop.
Oh, I believe
they're doing you know, they have some free time where they go into the cupola and be able to take pictures of Earth and shit like that, you know, kind of have a little bit of their own time. But for the most part, their time is being run for them. And I think that's part of it. I think as humans, if you're busy, like
staying active.
Yeah. Think, you know, they have so much they have to exercise while they're in space, because otherwise the muscle atrophy and everything else, it just, you know, there's huge negative effects to that.
Oh yeah.
So you think about the exercise. I look back at like 2001 Space Odyssey, right? So you have these this
the dude running.
on a giant fucking cat wheel, or a gerbil wheel, hamster wheel, whatever, one of those things. But yeah, so you're going to have something like that, and you're not going to have a huge amount of space.
No,
like the International Space Station is fucking huge compared to most of the other things we put into space. But even that is relatively small.
Yep.
So you're going to have a vehicle that doesn't have necessarily that much size. You're going to have a minimum of 4 people to be able to go do it.
And just again to think about the time it takes to get there and how the fuck you would eventually turn around and come back.
Yeah.
It's
this is a big part of it too, and the amount of expense. So we're right now on track for Artemis to happen.
Right. This is the next moon landing in 24.
Yes.
23 or 24.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to happen in the next presidency. So if we get, the Orion capsule up and this Artemis program going, and we can get some moon missions going within the next decade, then you're going to see, okay, here's a vehicle that we're going to be able to put together to be able to make this trip.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing, I've heard people talk about like, oh, well, they're going to launch rockets off of the moon to go get to Mars, and orbital mechanics doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like once you escape Earth's orbit, you're going to use Earth's orbit to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
You're not going to just push off of the moon and fucking go coasting out.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the amount of energy.
Yeah.
What you will have probably in the next 10 years, in Dave Martin's estimation, is you're going to have a drive system that's actually going to be able to get you there faster.
Oh, you think so?
I think that the technology is on the cusp of being there, but there's no way to prove it. Like we don't have a mission right now that's going to say, okay, yes, this particular drive, like this ion drive, we talk about like fancy TIE fighter light type drive. Those things exist now, and they've been used in other spacecraft now, using those to move enough of mass. Because yes, you're in zero gravity, you're in deep space. However, you still need to fucking produce thrust to get mass going in one direction.
Right.
The difference is, once you get it in one direction, it'll keep going, until it hits another, gravity or something like that. But for the most part, it's that idea that once you fucking get all the energy, all that kinetic energy into getting it moving, cool, then you just fucking let it go.
Yeah.
And then you're going to need a lot of energy to slow it the fuck down. And that's where getting into the, or getting into the atmosphere and doing the orbiting, you're going to have to send some major hardware to Mars first.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have to send probably some sort of landing vehicle that's going to sit there for when the occupants of the manned vehicle show up, that they have something to get into. Again, The Martian talks about this.
Yeah.
But you're also going to need fucking satellites. You're going to have to, like, we had the image up on YouTube here. We're talking about like what's over Mars right now. You're going to have way more detailed. Oh, if you look at it right now, I know you switched it off, but did you see that in Curiosity, where Curiosity is right there?
Oh, no.
Here, hang on. I'll switch it back. But yeah, if you look.
Oh, yeah.
Right here. There's Insight and Curiosity.
Nice.
The rovers, where they are on Mars. So yeah, you're going to need way more. You're going to need communication satellites, in orbit to be able to fucking act as relay stations for whatever's going on, because you're going to want to have that contact, because now you have humans there. Right now, it's way more important to know like what's going on a minute-to-minute basis. So you're trying to hedge your bet as much as possible.
Sure.
So I think you'll have this ion technology that's going to be able to generate enough kinetic energy to get us there a little bit faster. You're not touching speed of light shit. That's fucking for the movies.
Yeah.
So far. But you have that technology, and then you have laser technology where we're going to actually communicate via laser to have that light speed communication. Lasers. So, have less than an AU for it to travel between Earth and Mars, or sometimes a little bit more than an AU, depending on where it is on the orbit. But you'll have the ability to have faster communication, but you're going to need that network. You need that communication network.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, this begs the question, and this is kind of how I wanted to wrap this up, is in our lifetimes, in the lifetimes of Jason Roskam and Dave Martin, are we going to see a human being on Mars before we die? because I know right now they've got it kind of fragged for the 30 or for the 2030s.
Mm-hmm.
That's their far off look at where they think they might be able to make this happen. So do you think it's really going to happen during our lifetimes? I have no doubt that at some point in the history of our species, we will land on Mars.
Sure.
But will we see it?
The optimist in me says yes. And I say that because we have, as a species, we're still in that mode where we're still looking up, right? We still want to get there. One of the things that von Braun talks about in that book from the fucking 40s is that it'll take the entire world. We have a good level of cooperation with the Soviets, with the Japanese, but you're going to need everybody,
right?
All the smart people in the world to pitch in, because if it becomes one country trying to do this on their own, it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have the entire world as being part of this and have buy into it.
And it's important for all of us as human beings, because I've mentioned this already in the past, and I'll say it again. You know, humanity's survival as a species is eventually going to have to be off of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Like if humanity is going to be eternal, we have to eventually start spreading out to the stars. Now, obviously, transportation and speed are going to be a huge factor in that. We may just be fucked in general because of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the first steps of that are first going to the moon and then going to the next closest, heavenly body, which is Mars.
Yeah. And
so
I think 40 years is a long time. You know, if I live I make 85, and that's the goal, right?
My goal is 90.
Right. If I make
every day after 90, it'll be a fucking party. Like, woo!
I want to make it as far as my grandfather did.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at 85, and that's 40 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a point right now with the commercial technology,
SpaceX and all that.
Yeah. And having some competition, like between Blue Origins and SpaceX and Boeing, and those products are going to make it easier to get where we need to be. But it's the will. Like, do we have the will to do it?
Right.
You know, lightning. We call it lightning in a bottle in '69.
Right.
By Kennedy goes out there for whatever reasons. I've talked about it before. There's a book about Kennedy's moonshot.
Yeah.
And
what was it, like 61 where he made that declaration, like where he said that we can put a man on the moon before the end of this decade.
Yeah.
I think it was like 61 when he said that.
He made that speech. It was in Texas somewhere. I think it was 61.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, it was we had a lot of things as part of the military industrial complex, and military industrial complex was in direct competition with NASA and okay, where are we going to get these technologies? And there was a lot of infighting there, and it almost kept it from happening, like by 69, because of some of the, like, okay, this is my thing, I don't want to share with you type shit.
Right.
This interagency cooperation in the States.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. That we still have today. But that being said, we basically went from nothing. We went from fucking, V2 rockets fucking throwing ordnance over, the English Channel. We went from something like that to the Saturn V rocket in 24 years.
Yeah. It's a pretty big leap.
So you think of what can happen in 40 years.
Yeah.
With technology that we have now, the miniaturization that we have now.
Yeah.
Look at the Dragon capsule compared to fucking the Apollo capsule.
And I mean, honestly, look at how fast technology has gotten better over just the last 20 years. Like how rapidly everything is improving at such a high rate versus, going back to the 50s and 60s. And from my perspective, it doesn't seem like technology was moving as fast back then as it is now.
It was just different.
Yeah.
That if you look at what happened in the 40s from the 40s and 50s, with World War II and where we went from that technology. Like, I would recommend looking at radar If you want to get a good glimpse of what technology in those days was about, start researching radar.
Yeah, I did radar as a project for school.
Nice.
Back in I think it was middle school.
Yeah, so you can look at that and look at some of the timeline and see like where these advancements were, like getting to the point where we're starting to use circuit boards, like understanding what computing is.
Yeah.
And making machines actually do some of these equations, and getting to a point where it can print a fucking gate on a card and have this binary, 1 and 1 equals 1 type conversation, and then watch that multiply over a certain thing. We're getting to a point with our technology where now it's going to be a matter of using this resource to its maximum extent and then keeping it fucking cool. I mean, what look at the computing in our day.
Yeah.
Like what's been holding back supercomputing?
The heat,
the temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you have that much switching going on. And I think that's where, when you have if you're going to develop artificial intelligence, it's going to have, if you think about the switching speeds that computing would have to do, like similar to this, this thing, this fucking meat mech that our brains driving around, the entire existence of this thing is to make sure this thing has blood and stays cool.
Yeah.
Right. That's the entire purpose of our body, is to keep the fucking brain working.
That's true.
And that's what you're going to have. You start incorporating systems like that, and it's going to take, honestly, it's going to take our kids as kids. Their imagination is what's going to get us there.
Yeah.
Their politics and everything else is so fluid that what's important to us today is not going to matter.
Yeah.
But in several decades, when our children are sitting down, our children's children, and they're looking at, hey, what's the next thing? What are we missing here? How we're looking at a problem that we can't solve right now, but we should be able to solve that problem in 10 years.
Yeah.
15 years. So that I think that if you have the will, then you'll find a way.
Yep.
Because that's what we did in the 60s.
All right.
To get to the moon.
I feel a little pessimistic about it, only because of just the fucking challenge of making it happen. Just, it seems like, how can we fucking do this? But
listen, real talk. I'm gonna tell you right now, I gave you a whole fucking speech about how optimistic I am. The reality is, based on our current situation right now, I can't see us fucking making it to the moon. Like I can't see us making back to the, like, if you're taking our present condition right now and the way politics is and everything else, and what this virus has done to the world.
Yeah.
We can't get that shit under control. Getting and spending the money and the effort to getting to the moon is going to push everything to the right.
That is true.
That's the pessimist side of me, is that as we're living in the moment, getting to there, but then the optimist is what comes back and says, okay, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. How many times in the 50s were we so close to fucking annihilating the entire planet?
Probably
pretty close.
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah.
Well documented. So we're not, this virus cannot be compared to that type of event, because, well, let's just put it that.
Yeah.
We can't, that's apples and oranges, but you look at how the world is now handling an event like this. This is going to be the determination of how we get to the next thing. But again, by commercializing this stuff, somebody's making money on this, and NASA's just paying the freight to fucking be able to go and involve our astronauts doing all that. That's where we need to be right now.
Yeah. Competition.
Yeah. Promote friendly competition and see where we go.
Yep. And I think we can revisit this topic in February when the lander hits Mars. Now, one thing that we did not really mention, because we were kind of going through this stuff so fast, was the Curiosity, or not, Perseverance, is also carrying Ingenuity, which is a fucking drone.
Right.
So we're putting a fucking drone on Mars, which is awesome.
Yeah, we're putting a helicopter basically on Mars. And there's a lot of fascinating video out there. Go to YouTube, NASA's YouTube channel, and you see, talking to some of the scientists that at JPL that have been working on this, like figuring out, like, okay, how with such less air, like, how do we control the fucking rotation?
Yeah, the aerodynamics are different.
Yeah, you have to, like, you'd be spinning so fast to generate the same amount of lift that you would ordinarily. And how do you do that? How do you do that and still maintain the size and weight requirements? Because every single fucking just O-ring, washer, fucking tire, everything has a weight limit. Like weight is a commodity, because the heavier it is, the fucking more energy and the bigger rocket needs to fucking get it out of the Earth's atmosphere. So every fucking ounce counts.
Yep.
So the idea that they'd be able to build this thing, design it, so that they can fly it off of Perseverance and then be able to do something further away and then come back and report. It's fucking phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And it's all got to be automated, because it's not like you've got your fucking little drone remote here on Earth and you just, all right, now let me go down and look at that.
Go fly this profile and hope for the best.
Yeah. Hope it fucking comes back. And
look, I will be devastated if something happens to this. For whatever reason, I have this like personal investment in what's happening with this thing right now.
Yeah.
And I would be devastated if something happened, because the idea that we're leaping out of the 20th century into 21st century technology and getting it to Mars to be able to fucking look around, hear what the fuck is going on, fly drones like you're talking about, just like, okay, now we're putting 21st century technology out there. Yeah,
for the first time, really. Yeah, this century. We're doing it like in a scientific manner, like this.
Make this next generation of fucking coming out with some outlandish shit and just fucking doing it.
Yeah,
like we did in the 60s and 70s.
And maybe this will be the catalyst to get people more interested in going to Mars.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's I think that was a good discussion. This seems like a logical closure point. Anything else to add before we?
I do not. I talked a lot this episode. I'm not used to talking this much.
That's fine. Because again, you're much more smart on this than I am. So it was, from my perspective, it was nice just learning about all of this. So
yeah, it's fun to research, and there's some more astronomy nerd topics that we get in the queue, but I think we need to space them out pretty good, because I can imagine some listeners are like,
some people are like, oh,
yawn.
Or, he was talking about He-Man last week, and now they're talking about the fucking space exploration to Mars.
Hey, so speaking of next week,
so more than likely we're going to be back with a new All Things Star Wars, right?
I was foaming at the bit to talk about fucking the Mandalorian this week, so. But we did all this research for the Mars thing. We kind
of fragged it out. Plus, I didn't think there was enough in the new Mandalorian.
See, I disagree. And I'm curious to see your points of that when we talk about it next week.
And we'll figure that, when we talk about it next week, because we'll be talking about 2 episodes, potentially Ahsoka arriving also, which I still don't know if that's going to happen next week.
I don't think so either, but
we'll see. So, thanks everybody for watching and listening. Remember, subscribe to us on YouTube if you're listening to the audio. If you're listening to us on the All Things Star Wars podcast audio feed, please go and subscribe to From a Gen X Point of View. Also, we're not getting the downloads we're still getting on the All Things Star Wars feed.
And listen, I know we're confusing by jumping back and forth between the two things, but it's a click away.
Yeah,
you can download both of them. It's not going to eat up space on your iPod,
right? But it is going to give us the downloads, and it's going to help us out.
Yes, please
leave us a review on iTunes, and we will read your review verbatim.
Speaking of, did we have any reviews?
Yeah, I looked. We didn't have any.
All right, fair enough.
But yes, if you do write us a review, we'll read whatever you write verbatim. Just go on to iTunes, leave a review From a Gen X Point of View, please.
The From a Gen X Point of View podcast is at Gen X POV on all your social media outlets as well. So
yes, it is.
Follow us on Instagram and look at the vacuum of space of shit that we don't post on our fucking social media.
We should be better. That's probably why we're not getting as many downloads. We're not promoting ourselves very well.
You know what it is? It's just like you said, we're creatures of habit.
Yep.
And we need to develop it as part of our habit pattern. Maybe that's what I should be doing while I'm on the bike, as opposed to fucking shooting zombies.
Yeah.
Shooting zombies is so fun.
You're not wrong.
You still need it. You need it.
All right, but we're going to go ahead and close it out. So thanks everybody for watching, listening, subscribing, whatnot. And remember, everything we told you today was true from a Gen X point of view.
Now what do I click, motherfucker? It's my beer.
Do a little Chappelle in there.
Trying.
Which, by the way,
Stuff going in cold.
go take your piss, and then I gotta say something. It hurt my foot. Episode 16 Raw. Who's still in the chat with us? We got Dragon Buddy, we got Lunar Girl, we got Scott, we got Tom. Oh, Tom breaking the law, having his whole family over for Thanksgiving. I like it. Fuck the man, right? Oh, Scott mentioned that the original Smurfs cartoons are on the HBO Max app. Oh yeah, the Dark Troopers. Yeah, we'll get into that. Maybe we'll have more of an idea of what the fuck they actually are next episode. So our listeners are breaking the law. They're all like, fuck the man. We're having Thanksgiving at our house still with all of our family.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
we'll have fun with that.
So talking about this Chappelle skit that we got the Mars thing from.
Yeah,
the Black Bush. I'm watching it the other night, just kind of trying to get in the mood for the Mars stuff. And I watched the whole Black Bush skit. It's like 3.5 minutes. We could probably spend a whole episode digesting that one fucking skit and how deep it gets with, the politics at the time. Just so many just smart fucking jokes.
Yellow cake.
Don't drop that shit. Just don't drop that shit. Yeah. The fucking Jamie Foxx showing up as black fucking Tony Blair. Mm-hmm. We don't know what Saddam has.
Listen, Chappelle Show on its own could be.
Oh well, no, we could do a whole podcast on just Chappelle Show and dissect single episodes of that show over the course of a 2-hour podcast because it's so good.
Do you think people would listen to us dissecting Dave Chappelle?
It would be an interesting dynamic.
Two of the whitest people on fucking planet Earth.
Yeah,
we're gonna delve into fucking racism and talk about Chappelle Show.
Right, but I mean, honestly, like just the Black Bush skit itself, we could just dive so deep into because there's so many super smart fucking jokes.
Oh yeah,
in this 3.5 minute sketch, it's fucking insane how good it is. And I realized this as I'm watching it the other day.
Oh, dude, all that shit from the Chappelle Show is just the fucking when we talked about the internet thing, internet skit, the level of you dissect that as in fucking 10 years from now, thinking about what the internet was at that point.
Yeah,
like what was the internet like at that point? All right, let me show you a short video.
Debt consolidation, gambling, debt consolidation, gambling. Enough with the pop-ups. So, all right, I gotta piss now. So, entertain the folks.
Yeah, I'm not. Hey, I appreciate everyone hanging in there. I like the. I just noticed that. So we have from our live viewership is all over like it. So StreamYard will actually break it down, so I can look and see that there's 6 on the YouTubes, and we got one Facebook love from Isaac Sipe. So thank you, Isaac, for that. Excuse me. Here's a problem with these nerd episodes, like this type of nerd episode. I want to teach people so bad this thing, but it's not. It like you guys rock, but for me, like I can see not gaining a larger audience because we're fucking going balls deep into what Mars planetary lander is happening right now, or what happened in 1877 in regards to Mars. So that's oh shit, Scott. Yeah, I think on our show list, the Eddie Murphy is on there. Jason, on our list, is Eddie Murphy Raw on our show topic list?
I don't think so, but that would be a fun one. Was that the one where he did the Rocky bit, where he was talking about Italians coming out of Rocky, being all pumped up and wanting to fight black guys?
Yep. Oh, dude, Delirious. Yeah, Raw was probably the one for like I saw. Like Delirious was before that, I think. Raw was the one where it's in there the fucking the black or the red leather, like looking like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Talking about the gay sirens in fucking San Francisco. Woo woo woo! Pull over!
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that brings back like this onrush of fucking Eddie Murphy shit that I fucking put away in my brain.
And of course, you could look at that now from a perspective of today, like how much of that shit wouldn't fly today.
Oh my god!
Like, look at the shit Chappelle gets.
I know.
Whenever he does like a couple of transgender jokes, you know, but he does it in a tasteful way to where he's not just like being just like so derogative and everything else, but he still, you know, got a ton of shit from the fucking lunatics
We had
online.
which is this whole nother show topic, I think. But you think about the cancel generation.
Yeah.
It was prevalent there though. It just wasn't like, hey, if you go on an HBO special, then you're buying it for HBO, or you buy the album, you can control that.
Yeah.
But at that point, they were trying to control the sale of the album.
Mm-hmm.
Sidebar with that record store last weekend, weekend before last. So many Bill Cosby albums, like in the $1.99 fucking rack. And you know what's funny is Cosby is look, convictions and everything else notwithstanding. I mean, we hit the image of what he was in the 80s. Again, it's a whole nother show topic, but you think about it, it doesn't make his shit any less funny.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that he talked about, like the family stuff and the, you know, the
His
giving
comedy,
birth and everything else.
Going back and listening to his comedy now, real hit and miss with me. Like some stuff just really kind of falls flat by today's standards, but some of it is still like right on point.
So the but even then, like this is this guy who portrayed like this family man, right? Cosby Show.
Yeah.
And then you listen to the comedy and like talking about hitting his kids, disciplining his children, and you know, his wife being angry and shit like that. Like I think people would lose without Cosby's fucking drugging and raping people.
Yeah.
I think you just put that out there, but like, oh well, this is what they condone. Like, yeah, well, yeah. The fact that it was a different time, it's not an excuse, it's a reason.
Yeah.
You can't package everything up to this neat thing like, okay, here's history, we're going to change history to suit what fucking makes us happy now.
Right. Well, and that goes back to that Bill Burr SNL stand-up where he's talking about fucking John Wayne, and people now were like, did you hear what John Wayne said in that interview in the 70s? And he's like, yeah, he was born in 1908. What do you expect?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And it for me, it comes back to like the Philadelphia Flyers reaction to the Flyers and the New York Yankees, but fuck the Yankees. But
yeah,
when the Kate Smith stuff came out, it's like, okay, in 1910 or 1917 or wherever the fuck this shit happened.
Yeah.
This person who was famous at the time did an advert that had racially insensitive overtones in the fucking early 20th century.
Yeah. Go figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now we're going to cancel this.
That person's been dead for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to take a statue down and not play that song because of something that represents. It's not fucking.
Yeah. It's stupid.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's so much stupid shit these days.
I'm surprised you didn't say a thing about the Eagles today.
What's there to say?
Yeah, I don't know.
They fucking suck. The Eagles are a bad football team. The problem is they're a bad football team that's still going to compete for the division. Here's the problem with the Philadelphia Eagles, and something I don't think the 49ers have to deal with. The 49ers, if they play poorly, they're in a division where they have strong football teams.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you look at the Seattles and you look at these other teams, they're like,
the
okay,
Rams, even Arizona has points of brilliance.
Yeah. So you look at all these teams and go like, okay, if the 49ers aren't playing well, that doesn't mean they're the worst team in the league.
Sure.
That just means that they're you're competing for your fucking conference, or you're competing for the division.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get in the playoffs. The Eagles are in the worst conference or the worst division in the league. And they're all managing to lose epically. but one of them is going to win. One of them is going to be the fucking division champion. And if you're the owner of that team and you go like, okay, yeah, we won a division, so I have to fire somebody. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Like I'm not saying that somebody needs to be fired at the Eagles. I'm saying that you have to, if you're play calling on a game where your quarterback's struggling, but you're gonna put these packages out there that rely on your quarterback being as good as he was this time last year, you're failing. That's a failure of the coaching.
Yeah.
Like some of this is on Carson Wentz because his decision making, but I think ultimately it's the coaching. I think Doug Peterson needs to stop calling plays. He's check his fucking ego and stop calling plays.
Yeah.
Let's hire a fucking offensive coordinator. Hire somebody that's
I just saw an article about that. Yeah. Somebody's like, yeah, Doug Peterson needs an OC.
Yeah, he absolutely does. 100%. Focus on the managing of the fucking football team. Let somebody else call the plays. Let somebody else develop a playbook that is built around. If Carson Wentz is your guy, you paid a lot of money for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I could generate an offense that's going to use his skills. It's going to get the ball out of his hand faster. It's going to utilize the run game more.
Yeah.
Instead, you have a Super Bowl winning coach who keeps falling back on the fact that these things worked at some point in the past.
Right. No, at this point, you've got to be the coach, and you've got to like bring some hungry guys up, some guys that are looking for that opportunity, or who are even proven.
The problem is that you have most of this team has been in some injury. They're floating in and out of injuries, right? So you have an offensive line. I think they said some fucking ridiculous. Like the only person that has started all games this season on the offensive line is Jason Kelce. It's your center.
Yeah.
You almost lost him in this fucking game. That tough motherfucker. He went out. He hyperextended his elbow. They showed it on TV. He's like fucking elbow, like wah, it like went back. It was right elbow.
Oh, damn.
Excuse me. The motherfucker refuses to go in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's pacing on the sideline. He's like, nope, not going in the tent. Fuck you. I'm not going in there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was the end of the half. They walk him into the fucking thing, and he comes out with a giant fucking. I think it took Jason Peters' fucking arm brace on. They put it on him. So they're fucking, and he went out there and played the rest of the game.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
that guy. That's you build your fucking team around that guy.
Mm-hmm.
The toughness, like, and Jason Peters is one of those guys. He's too old, but he's the only guy you have right now.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing with this offense to actually make that shit work? And they're not doing it. They're not doing it. And yeah, you're going to lose to the fucking Browns. And at the end, what's really funny is at the end, it seemed like that game was in grass several times. You drive down to the fucking 4 and you fumble the football.
Yeah.
You got a guy who here's a guy. He was injured, missed a bunch of time, come back in. Miles Sanders should be not only should he be healthy, that motherfucker should be strong.
Yeah. Because
he didn't have that mileage put on his body. Now, hold the fucking football. I mean, it's a tells all the time. Then what's funny is if you're watching that game, the Eagles go down to the 4, fumble, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's the Browns ball. They drive all the way to the 1, don't score. And it forces the Eagles to go back the other way. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, guys, battle of just bad fucking teams.
Yet somehow the Browns are like 7-3. Like, how the fuck did that happen? What's his name's out? Burrow for the season, right?
Yeah. They said like
ACL and MCL.
Yeah, that hit was.
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm good. My knee hurts fucking just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, football's tough right now. It's tough for me right now.
Yeah.
It's the Penn State's terrible. Michigan barely fucking beat Rutgers.
Yeah, but
it's a game. Michigan beat Rutgers, right? And they were favored, obviously, to win that game. But Michigan beats Rutgers, and I don't know what the fucking over on that game was. They scored like 90 points in that game. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, if you want to score 90 points, then that should be like fucking 55 points for Michigan. If that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, instead it was like 48-42 was the final.
Damn.
It's like, holy shit. Like, Rutgers is a different team. And Rutgers is going to compete in the Big Ten now. They got Greg Schiano back. The beauty of college football is that That guy, the guy that's wearing that fucking hat right now, like Harbaugh doesn't. If Harbaugh doesn't beat Rutgers, he doesn't make it to the Ohio State game. So now they'll let him get to the Ohio State game and lose that, and then they'll fire him. Khakis is gone.
Is that coming up? The Michigan
couple weeks,
State?
December 17th, I think, something like that.
Right.
Just because the championship games are coming up. But yeah, Harbaugh's gone. You can't fire Franklin because you fire Franklin, they got to pay him like $43 million, some ridiculous shit. So he's not going anywhere. So now you got this fucking guy who's lost the program. Case in point, they let this fucking dude, what the hell is his name? Sugar or something, off of Penn State, right? He decommitted from, or he was at Penn State, transfers to Florida, right? Florida is one of the top teams in the country right now. And he's getting all kinds of playing time. Dude's got good hands, fucking running, but he didn't get along with Franklin, so he fucking transfers. So we took a good fucking football player and let him go to another school because of the coach's personality. Wrong. Alarms should be going off. You can't win a fucking football game. You can't in this era. You can't win a fucking football game, even with COVID and everything else. Something wrong.
Yeah,
something's wrong in that locker room.
Yep. Well, I think we need to close this up because I still have to eat dinner.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm still working until Wednesday. So
yeah, fucking work.
But thanks everybody for staying.
Yeah,
good seeing you all. We have all of our usuals, so we love you guys. You are the best.
Bronco Fed. I am also rooting against BYU for all stakes.
Yep. So that being the case, we're signing off.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving, everyone. Fuck the man, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully you all won't have COVID.
Yeah.
Peace.